Hello, welcome to the Fanfic Majesty. 7 PIW. Chapter 181. Another Pirate World. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. This is where Whitebeard stood on the grass, frowning. After the end of the Battle of Ghost Island, he took the captains of the Whitebeard pirate group and continued sailing on the sea. Because of the victory of the war, he became the true king of the world. As he continued sailing with his sons, he woke up and came here without any warning. Looking at the surrounding environment, he was sure that this was still the pirate world. Boom. At this moment, a roar sounded. Whitebeard turned his head to look, and saw that a big battle was taking place in the sea ahead. One is a pirate group that unites several fleets. There are only 2 people on the other side. However, the party with more people did not gain the advantage, but was completely suppressed by the 2 on the other side. Squard and Whitby. Whitebeard took a closer look and suddenly saw 2 familiar figures. These 2 familiar figures are the captain of their own pirate group, the Great Vortex Spider and the Ice Witch. And their enemies are Miss Barking and Wable. What happened? Whitebeard frowned. He clearly remembered that he had crossed to One Piece and became Whitebeard. At that time, there were only 6 days left before the top war. In order to save Ace, he captured Impel Down, rescued Bullet, Rider, World, Shiryu of the Rain, Evil King, Sand Crocodile and others, and killed Blackbeard. Later, he went to Marineford to fight against the 3 Admiral. After sinking Marineford, he successfully escaped with Ace. Advertisement. Later, he experienced the Pirate Expo, defeated Bullet and made Bullet his son. In the days to come, Miss Bajan was killed, and Wable, Fujitora, Aokiji, Rider, and World were on the ship. Then fight the Kaido Coalition forces. After defeating the Kaido Coalition forces, he completely dominated the New World and was called the King of the World. But in a blink of an eye, Wable, who had boarded his own ship, and Miss Barkin, who had died, appeared again. And there was a war with Skyard and Whiteby. This made him feel a little dizzy. After thinking about it for a while, an absurd idea came to mind. That is, he may have crossed again. Before he traveled to the world of One Piece, became Whitebeard, and won the victory of the top war, which saved the tragedy from happening. And this time through, the world that I crossed is still the world of One Piece. However, the time period has deviated. Passing through to the end of the war at the top, Whitebeard has been killed, and Whitebeard too, in order to prove that he is the parent and child of Whitebeard, crusade against the Whitebeard pirates. Another pirate world. So the war on the top of this world has ended, and I has died in the war. Whitebeard thought to himself that the original doubt disappeared. Although I don't know why I crossed again, but it doesn't matter. After all, in the pirate world that I went to before, there was no force that could threaten the Whitebeard pirates. Even if I wasn't there, the Whitebeard pirates would still be the first force. But this world is different. He had died in battle, and the pirate group fell apart. Now that I am here, I can save the Whitebeard pirates and avoid tragedy. Goo la la la. Advertisement. In the original plot, Wable went everywhere against my pirate group. Now that I am here, I can't let this happen. Whitebeard smiled calmly, then looked at the battle in the sea. With the explosion of Shock Fruit's ability, the body soared into the sky and headed towards the battle site. Question mark. The sea. The fighting between the 2 sides came to a fierce heat. Although Skyard and Whitebeard are numerous and powerful, they are not the opponents of Whitebeard too. You are not the father's son at all, I am the father's only son. So I will definitely kill you fakers. Whitebeard too, Wable said angrily. With a slash cut down, there was a violent sound of breaking through the air, causing Skyard and others to evade in embarrassment. Damn it, who is this man? Is it really the father's son? What a joke. If it's the father's son, how can he deal with us? The faces of Skyard and others were ugly. I don't understand, who is this man who suddenly appeared and has a white beard like the old man? Not only does this person look a bit similar, but his swordsmanship and strength are also extremely powerful. During the fight, they really thought they were fighting with Dad. Ehahaha. My dear son, you are doing a good job. These people are not your father's sons. In this world, you are the only parent and child of Whitebeard. So kill them so that you can inherit your father's inheritance. Miss Bajan on the side laughed sharply. But as soon as I finished speaking, I heard a sound of breaking through the air, and there was a sentence in the sound of breaking through the air. Advertisement. Goo la la la. Bajan, you are still cheating by my name. Whitebeard's voice came. When the people present heard this, they all looked at it. Then I saw a figure appearing in the sky, and after a while, it landed on the boat. After seeing this figure, everyone was stunned. I saw this figure as extremely tall, nearly 7 meters, naked upper body wearing a coat, holding a big knife in his hand, and a white beard with a crescent moon on his face. Seeing this, people trembled all over. Promise. It took a long time before she screamed. Father. Whitebeard. That's right. It was Whitebeard who arrived. At this moment, whether it was Miss Barkin or Skiyard and others, they all yelled out loud, with shocked and unbelievable expressions on their faces. At the end of the war, Dad died on the battlefield and was buried on the island. This is something that everyone in the Whitebeard Pirates has experienced. But who could have imagined that a person defined as death would appear in front of people again? Everyone was shaking their hands and wiping their eyes, wondering if they were mistaken. But no matter how many times I wiped it, the figure in front of me is so real. It really is Whitebeard. It's really his dead father. That burly body, and the iconic beard, can't be wrong. Chapter 182, Behead Barkin. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Father. Is it really you, Daddy? When Skiyard faced the familiar figure, he shouted excitedly, and the other crew members also showed incredible expressions. They never thought that they would see Whitebeard again. How come, aren't you dead? Miss Barkin was speechless in surprise. Mom, what the hell is going on? Whitebeard too looked dumbfounded. My dear son, don't worry, your real father has been killed in the top war. This must be a fake. Miss Bajan gritted her teeth and said categorically, even if she was actually half trusted. Skiyard, is this really the old man? Whitebeard questioned in Skiyard's ear, and the other crew members were also full of doubts, and came back from the dead. How could this be possible? He looks exactly like the old man, the big sword is the same, and he has that kind of king's aura, but at that time, we all saw the old man die with our own eyes. I don't know. Squard was not sure, although he was excited the first time he saw Whitebeard, but he couldn't figure out how Whitebeard came alive anyway. In case this old man is impersonating, then we still call him old man, isn't that sorry for the real old man? Whitebeard had a peculiar way of thinking. Squad felt reasonable. He put away his excitement and thought about it a little bit. Indeed, 900 now can't draw any conclusions. After all, after the death of Whitebeard, too many Gyuki snake gods appeared, such as Whitebeard 2 in front of him, claiming to be Whitebeard's own son. Someone can impersonate Whitebeard's son, so it is possible to impersonate Whitebeard. Let's take a look first. Skiyard was going to observe first to see if the Whitebeard was real or not. To be honest, whether it was true or not, Skiyard would not believe it. Advertisement. Because at the top of the war, they saw Whitebeard died with their own eyes, it is impossible to fake it. Well, looking at each of you in surprise, you don't believe it, do you? No wonder, this is indeed incredible to you. But as my sons, I hope you can make accurate judgments as soon as possible. Whitebeard said faintly, although he was speaking to a group of crew members, his eyes were always on Miss Barkin when he spoke. For this former crew member, although Whitebeard knew her very early, he hated this very much. People. Miss Bajan, you have to pay a price for doing something wrong. Whitebeard ABFA's tone was very low, and the breath on his body spread instantly like a raging wave. Skiyard and others were instantly shocked by this terrible pressure, and they all stepped back a lot. It's Conqueror's hockey. There was a hint of surprise in Skiyard's eyes. At the next moment, a shocking force hit Miss Bajan's body heavily. She had no time to dodge, and hit the blow firmly, and her body flew out suddenly. Mom! Whitebeard too yelled and rushed towards him with the same big knife as Whitebeard. Whitebeard too believes very much in the words of Miss Bajan. Since she said that this Whitebeard is fake, it must be fake for a long time. Therefore, Whitebeard too launched an attack without any worries. Children go first. Without blinking Whitebeard's eyes, he waved his hand and a pounding force bounced Whitebeard too away. Suppressed him easily. Skiyard and Whitebeard looked at each other, and at the same time saw a hint of surprise in each other's eyes. They had already fought Whitebeard too before. Advertisement. Even if the two pirate groups unite, they are not the opponents of Whitebeard 2, and the Whitebeard who doesn't know the true or false in front of him suppressed him by understatement. Then Whitebeard walked towards Miss Bajan with heavy footwork, a trace of killing intent leaked in his eyes. Are you really Whitebeard? Miss Barkin said with suspicion and fear. At this point, she had to believe that this was indeed the power that Whitebeard had. Moreover, it was the power of Whitebeard's heyday. Miss Barkin, you have to die here. I warned you before. I didn't expect that I still want to use my name to swindle and deceive. That kid has been living under your deception, right? Whitebeard's eyes were full of fierce pressure, and that kind of sharpness made Miss Bajan completely afraid to look into his eyes. Whitebeard, I just want to help you manage your subordinates. I don't want the Whitebeard pirate group you created to lose its glory. Niss Bacon suddenly screamed. Miss Bacon knew that she was not Whitebeard's opponent at all, and she had no resistance at all in front of him, so she could only find a way to save her life. Humph, I'm still full of nonsense when I die. Whitebeard snorted coldly. It's okay to use this to deceive a 3-year-old child. Isn't she crazy? She treats everyone like Whitebeard II's head. Whitebeard, looking at the relationship in the past, please forgive me, I swear I won't do it again. Miss Bajan immediately begged Whitebeard for mercy, and his performance was very low. Don't hurt my mother. Whitebeard too rushed over again, showing great power from the broad knife, and slashed at Whitebeard from above. Advertisement. Although the terrifying force was blocked by the barrier formed by the Whitebeard space shock, the impact that broke out caused a huge wave in the nearby sea. Miss Barkin, this kid has good strength, it's a pity to be in your hands by the master. Whitebeard saw that the potential of Whitebeard too was amazing, and this power was qualified to be his son. Good son, save me. Ignoring Whitebeard's words, Miss Barkin shouted loudly, which stimulated the heart of Whitebeard too even more, and the power became more and more swelling. But this also triggered Whitebeard's anger. He lifted Kong Yun to cut, and pierced Miss Ba Jin's body with a knife. Miss Barking, take your regret and go to another world. Whitebeard's eyes were very cold at this moment. Miss Barkin's eyes were full of resentment before he died, and Skyard and others immediately felt happy. This old woman is even more annoying than Whitebeard too, who directly attacked them. Good kill. Scudard couldn't help but uttered. At this time, a force gradually expanded, and Scudard saw visible changes in Whitebeard II's body. The muscles of his body became swollen, the veins violently, and the force that burst out from the body made the entire hull sway constantly. Mother. Witnessing the death of Miss Barkin, the anger of Whitebeard too has risen to the extreme. Chapter 183. One Punch Flies Whitebeard 2. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. I want to kill you. I want to kill you. Whitebeard 2 kept roaring. Miss Barkin is his only relative in the world, and he has always obeyed Miss Barkin's words. And now that Miss Barkin was killed by Whitebeard in front of him, Whitebeard too felt as if he had lost his direction in life, and had no idea what to do in the future. But one thing he hates for certain is that he must avenge Miss Bajan. Kill everyone. What a terrible power. It's more powerful than just now. Squad and Whitby felt this terrible power, and their hearts trembled slightly. I thought it turned out that Whitebeard too hadn't used all of his power before, and he had completely suppressed them. This guy is really powerful. If you don't know the inside story, I'm afraid this is really Whitebeard's son. After all, they looked so similar, they all had crescent-like beards, and they used the same big swords. Their strength was almost the same as that of Whitebeard. I think we have to stay away. Whitebeard said cautiously. She and Skyard and the other crew immediately retreated to another boat. Whitebeard glanced at it, which was just what he meant. If his sons were here, they would inevitably be affected. Wabel, you'd better calm down, otherwise you will be asking for trouble. Whitebeard looked at him with a very calm tone, as if he didn't care about his anger and the terrifying power that broke out. Advertisement. I want to avenge my mother. I want to kill you all. Whitebeard too roared once again. That kind of power has already distorted the space. Don't be silly, your so-called mother is always deceiving you. What she does is only for herself. You are just a tool for her. Whitebeard's truth is like a needle piercing Wabel's heart, making him unacceptable. You are not allowed to slander mother. Whitebeard too wielded the big sword vigorously with both hands, exuding an aura of horror in every move. The huge power made the hull of the ship tottering, as if it would shatter at any time. A huge slash wave swayed from Whitebeard II's knife, as if thunder and lightning. HMPH, overwhelmingly. Whitebeard snorted coldly, and a terrible shock force spread out from itself, and the surrounding space continued to produce cracks, extending like slender tentacles. The shock force collided with the slash wave, and a terrible impact was immediately generated, and a strong storm formed in the center, sweeping to the surroundings. The sea surface was suddenly set off by waves, swaying the ships of Skyard and others. The ship that Whitebeard was on could not withstand the force soon, and it broke directly in the middle. Whitebeard and Whitebeard too each stood on only half of the wreck. Damn it, I must kill you. Having seen the mighty power of Whitebeard, Whitebeard too was like a kid who refused to admit defeat. He continued to attack Whitebeard, and Whitebeard continued to respond to his attacks with ease. If it hadn't been for Whitebeard's intention to subdue him, then I'm afraid he would have been beheaded long ago. Advertisement. It was only because Whitebeard wanted to use it for his own use, so he kept his hands, but Whitebeard too seemed to be a little reckless, and after being defeated by Whitebeard several times, he still stood up. And the first boat ride was completely sunk by them, and the two moved to another boat. This kind of power is so terrible, I feel more and more that he is an old man. While watching the game, Skyard's gaze was always on Whitebeard's body. That kind of gestures can't be wrong, and it's hard for anyone to imitate it. Yes, I also think that it is very likely to be true, but I still can't figure out how the old man survived. After his death, the fruit ability should be obtained by other people. Whitebeard is always struggling with this. Let's wait until this battle is over. From his attitude towards us, I think I can tell. After all, Skyard is also the captain of the old man. After following for many years, he feels that if he communicates with the old man up close, he can definitely make a judgment. Whitebeard and Whitebeard 2 continued to fight, but during this period Whitebeard 2 had been crushed by Whitebeard. At this time, Whitebeard II's body was already full of scars. If it weren't for his powerful physical strength, most people would have been lying down. Zero seeking flowers, zero. Even with his strong self-healing power, Whitebeard 2 still felt painful, but this was still in the case of Whitebeard kept keeping his hands. Enough, Wabel, do you want to continue fighting? If you want to be my son, stop. I don't think you need to pretend to be in the future. Whitebeard holds a big sword in his hand, his body stands like a mountain, motionless like a mountain, and his voice is thunderous. You killed Mom, I am not your son. Whitebeard 2 still resisted angrily, dragging his tired body and rushing up again. Clang. Whitebeard picked it lightly with his hand, and instantly shot down the big knife in his hand. Advertisement. Whitebeard clenched his fist, slammed the light ball containing the shocking power, and hit Whitebeard II's body heavily. .00. Whitebeard 2 was knocked into the air a lot, a mouthful of blood came out, and his breath was really sluggish. Looking at the somewhat embarrassed look of Whitebeard 2 at this time, Squad could not think of his unstoppable image just now. Suddenly, Skiyard realized a problem, and he turned his head to look at Whitebeard in question. Don't you think it's weird? The power of this man seems to surpass that of the old man. Speaking of this, Whitebeard's face also changed slightly. She thought about it carefully. When the old father was engaged in the top war, she felt sick all over. Even if he didn't suffer from illness, he was a little weak at his age. But the Whitebeard in front of him, from the fight to the present, has not weakened in the slightest, and all his attacks have been done lightly. He didn't even catch his breath. It was obviously impossible for the real Whitebeard to have such physical strength. Yes, you are right. I almost ignored this. Even if the old man is resurrected for some reason, he will not break away from the limitation of his body. Whitebeard also felt very strange. Skiyard nodded. He continued to think along this line of thought, and he couldn't help but have another strange idea. Whitebeard, I suddenly thought of a possibility. I don't know. You say, is this a conspiracy by Marine? And Chapter 184. It's still his time. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Marine's conspiracy. Whitebeard was taken aback, then calmed down and asked, why do you say that? I heard from my father before that Marine is working on a new type of weapon that can copy humans into machines. Squad whispered, although he didn't want his guess to be true. Whitebeard's classical Chinese suddenly opened his mouth wide in surprise. What do you mean? I don't know, but maybe this can explain why the old man came back from the dead. They reproduced the old man's ability and made it into a robot, so he won't have any physical exertion. Skiyard talked more and more ridiculously, and Whitby couldn't believe it. Impossible, Dad was kicked so badly by Marine. Whitebeard couldn't bear it, but she glanced at Whitebeard again, and she couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Marine wants 900 to use his father's body to reunite the Whitebeard pirates, or what ulterior motives behind them? Skiyard continued, as if trapped in a Uzumaki. Once this idea arises, it seems to be able to unite all unrelated things, and then abruptly make up for a logical plot. Skeward himself couldn't stop his thoughts, and the Whitebeard next to him had already been shocked. If this is the case, then what should we do? Whitebeard gradually accepted this setting. Regardless of the facts, they must prepare for the worst before they are uncertain. If the Whitebeard in front of you is really fake, it's just a tool for the Master Whitebeard pirates by Marine. Then how should they resist? Their strength alone is absolutely incapable of confrontation, and if they rush to summon other captains, they might be deceived as soon as they see this fake Whitebeard. It would be great if Marco was here. Whitebeard began to miss their first captain, who looked lazy on the surface, but was actually very smart. No matter what, we can't shame the Whitebeard pirates. If we are sure that he is a fake, we will resist desperately. Even if we die here, we can use our death to confess the other captains. Advertisement. Skiyard looked awe-inspiring and generous. Hey, I hope this man is really our father. Whitebeard sighed. At this time, the battle between Whitebeard 2 and Whitebeard was coming to an end, because Whitebeard 2 could no longer stand up under the attack of the intensity of Whitebeard. Ahem, you have the ability to kill me, otherwise I will kill you one day. Whitebeard 2 had no strength to support him to stand up again, but still stubbornly threatened Whitebeard. Goo ha 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 ha. Whitebeard laughed loudly. She couldn't help being not angry, but thought this guy was funny. Speaking of being able to support his attack for such a long time, Whitebeard II's physical strength and self-healing ability are indeed extraordinary. This kind of talent master is really a waste in the hands of Miss Barkin. Even if she is dead, the brainwashing of Whitebeard 2 is deeply ingrained. This really makes Whitebeard a bit tricky, because he really wants to subdue Whitebeard 2 as a subordinate. Do you really want to kill me? Suddenly Whitebeard asked solemnly. Certainly. Whitebeard 2 showed a ruthless look, but Whitebeard's next sentence was unexpected. If this is the case, then you will become my son. Whitebeard let out his rhetoric, and Whitebeard too was stunned. You're a fake Whitebeard. Whitebeard too found out a word to answer for a long time. Advertisement. Stupid. Who else dares to pretend to be Whitebeard? Even if you pretend, you don't have this power. If you become my son and follow me in the future, you will have many opportunities to kill me. Whitebeard yelled aloud, then gave him a reason. Whitebeard too has always been simple-minded. He used to listen to Miss Barkin's words to act. Now let him judge for himself. This kind of logic is really acceptable to him. Yes, I have been beaten as a fool. Only when a father beats his son can this be the case. As long as I can kill you, I am willing to do anything. Whitebeard too immediately resolutely said. It's so decided, you can call me Daddy in the future. Whitebeard smiled relievedly. Father. Whitebeard too was also unambiguous, and shouted directly. Well, you can take a good rest. Whitebeard nodded, finally getting this guy done. Scudard and others looked from a distance on the other boat and found that Whitebeard had actually helped Whitebeard too up. These two people belonged to the same group. Whitebeard yelled out of his voice. The previous Whitebeard too dealt with them so skillfully. It was obvious that he was the enemy of the Whitebeard pirates. And this Whitebeard, who appeared later, is most likely Marine's puppet. They are probably acting just now. Scudard had a deep gaze. He stared at Whitebeard and shook his head slowly. No, it convinced me that this is the old man. Only the old man has this kind of demeanor. Why? Whitebeard wondered. Do you remember how Ace got on the boat? Scudard asked. Advertisement. Whitebeard immediately recalled. I remember that Ace wanted to challenge Dad, but failed every time. Dad let him go every time. Finally, Ace was moved by Dad. After speaking, Whitebeard himself immediately realized the problem. Only the old man will treat the enemy so generously. After Whitebeard settled down again, Whitebeard too turned his eyes to Scudard and the others. These crew members avoided far away because of the previous battle. Whitebeard held the cloud cutting in his hand, and stood firmly on the ground, slowly rising into the sky. Feeling this wide and familiar world, Whitebeard let out a sigh and full of pressure. Children, your time is back to 5.0. Excited, proud, excited, touched, tearful, all the crew present showed complex emotions at the moment they heard this sentence. Their thoughts re-experienced the time of following Whitebeard in an instant. The feeling of sharing honor with the old man is rooted in their hearts and cannot disappear. It's Daddy, it's Daddy. Scudard suffered in this moment, this familiar feeling, no one can replace it. Father. All the crew members knelt down to Whitebeard spontaneously, and one by one welcomed him back in unison. People think that the war on top is the end of the old era and represents the beginning of a new era. The same can be said, but this era still belongs to him. Whitebeard. Chapter 185. Slay the Blackbeard Pirates. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Father, when you went to war, you were not already. Yeah, we all saw it with our own eyes. What is going on? Whitebeard was sitting on the deck, and Whitebeard and a group of crew members surrounded him, and their faces showed joy. Goo-ha-ha-ha. Faced with this question, Whitebeard also burst into laughter. Yes, he has indeed died once, but after the enhancement of the previous world, his power has now risen to a peak again. Right now he can already say that no one is afraid. Children, I don't know how to explain it to you, but I am truly resurrected, and I will continue to have this era, so you all cheer me up and slowly take back what we have lost. Quote. Whitebeard's words lifted everyone's hearts like a sky thunder. Scudard had so much doubt in his heart before, but before Whitebeard's words, it disappeared. It can be seen that Whitebeard has so much charm and weight in their hearts. Father, since the top of the war, we have been full of enemies. They all wanted to carve up Daddy's chassis. Now that you are back, we don't need to be afraid. Scudard was like a child who had been bullied outside and went home and filed a complaint with his father. At this moment, his heart has returned to the state of being fearless and fearless. With Whitebeard in, their Whitebeard pirates seems to have an indestructible backing. Yeah, this guy beat us pretty badly before. If you didn't come in time, I'm afraid we have all been killed by him. Whitebeard glanced with dissatisfaction at Whitebeard too, who was resting next to him. Well, you have suffered, but the situation is different now, and now he is also my son. Please understand each other in the future. Advertisement. After Whitebeard finished speaking, he specifically emphasized to Whitebeard too, Wable, did you hear that? Get on well with your brothers. I know Daddy. Whitebeard too agreed very well. Yes. Whitebeard smiled relievedly. By the way, Father, do the other captains know the news of your resurrection? Scudard asked when he remembered. Others don't know yet, you know it for the first time. Whitebeard replied. Well, I'll send someone to inform Marco immediately. I think they will be very happy. Scudard immediately took out his phone worm in excitement. Somewhere in New World, a large group of pirates are gathering here, One of them is the Whitebeard Pirates group headed by Marco, and the other is the Blackbeard Pirates group headed by Badges. Since the death of the Whitebeard Pirates in Whitebeard, it has gradually begun to fall apart, even if it is as strong as Marco. Faced with the hostility of various forces, as well as internal and external troubles, they are still powerless. At this time, Badgers and Pizarro, Captain Number 4 of Blackbeard, found him together and wanted to wipe them out of the Whitebeard Pirates. Bajas, you are really going to take advantage of others, presumably you are looking for a good time specially, right? Marco gasped and said that he had just dealt with a battle not long ago, and now he met the two Blackbeard captains alone. The captain on Marco's side is currently the only one. If it was only one-on-one, even if Marco was a little tired, it was enough to deal with, but the two captains suffered a bit from him. Wahahaha, Marco, the era of that old fellow Whitebeard is over, and the remaining remnants of you should disappear with him. Badgers laughed arrogantly, and Marco was furious. Advertisement. You are not allowed to be disrespectful to the old man. Don't forget, your captain was still our father's son back then. Marco said bitterly, his tone full of unwillingness. When Whitebeard was still alive, all of them were together. It was so brilliant. But now, speaking of all this is because of Blackbeard, if it weren't for Blackbeard, Ace would not have been captured by Marine. If Ace is not caught by Marine, then Whitebeard will not break into naval headquarters in order to save Ace and lose his life there. HMPH, times will always change. Today is different. I hope you can understand this. Captain Blackbeard is the pinnacle of this era. Badger snorted. He was full of disdain for Marco's words, and his own tone was full of admiration for Blackbeard. Blackbeard, that is a legendary careerist. Stop talking nonsense, make a quick decision. Pizarro said impatiently. At the same time, he aimed at Marco with a 3-barreled pistol, and 3 bullets were fired at the same time. When he passed through Marco's body, part of Marco's body suddenly turned into a blue flame, easily dissolving the attack. You are really impatient, okay. Badgers laughed and rushed forward, his hands instantly covered with black armament hockey. Marco jumped into the sky instantly, sending blue flames at them at the same time. Huh, vulture tricks. Advertisement. Badgers used his arm to fend off the flames, and Pizarro also used a musket to offset the flames. Although Marco's 900 of Phoenix is very powerful, it is mainly defensive. Not very strong in attack power, and his opponents are not weak. Damn it. Marco cursed inwardly, and then flew into the higher sky in the form of an undead bird. At this height, both Badges and Pizarro had nothing to do with him. Marco, do you think we can't do anything about you? I see when you are going to stay in the sky. Seeing Marco avoiding a head-on fight with them, Badges was also a little angry, and grabbed one of Marco's crew members. Stop. Seeing that Badges was about to hurt his crew, Marco immediately swooped down and hit Badges' body with his whole body. Boom. Due to the great power, the entire ground shook, but Badgers was not injured. He used hockey to instantly grab Marco, and then went out with great strength. However, this force was dissolved by Marco in the air, and Pizarro was constantly attacking on the ground. But Marco's amazing recovery ability will soon heal, and the two sides entangled like this for a long time. Do. Suddenly the phone bug on Marco rang, which made him a little distressed. Why did the news come at this time? Chapter 186. Blackbeard, wash your neck. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Who? Marco had to answer the phone in the sky. Marco, it's me, Skiyard. Skiyard's voice came from over there. What's the matter? I still have something to deal with. Marco said hurriedly, which made Skiyard realize that something was wrong. Did you have any trouble? Skiyard asked. Who is the enemy? The two captains of Blackbeard. Hearing this, Squad was shocked. He immediately raised his head and looked at Whitebeard's direction. Father. Marco met Blackbeard's people. What? Blackbeard. Whitebeard's eyes flashed a fierce light. He had already killed Blackbeard once before. Unexpectedly, after the resurrection, his crew was bullied by Blackbeard again, which was simply unbearable. Give me the phone worm, and I'll talk to Marco. Whitebeard took the phone worm with his hands. Skiyard, if it's okay, I will concentrate on fighting, and the two of them are not enough for me. Marco saw that the other party was free for a few seconds without speaking, and he was about to hang up. Suddenly a familiar voice came. Marco, are you in trouble? Marco's heart trembled fiercely. The voice was Daddy. Marco was speechless for a while, wondering if he heard it wrong or had hallucinations. Guhahaha, can't you even hear Dad's voice? Whitebeard's bold laughter appeared. Advertisement. Father, it's really you. There is a flaw. While Marco was excited, both Badges and Pizarro discovered his flaws. At that moment, the two united, and Pizarro first hit Marco with several bullets and shells. Marco's figure was shot down and lowered a bit, and then Badgers jumped up, pulled Marco down, and fell heavily to the ground. Marco's wounded voice immediately reached Whitebeard's side. Marco, what's the matter? Whitebeard said solemnly. Father, I'm fine, this little injury is nothing, I will report to you as soon as I solve them. Marco used the power of immortality, the traces on his body gradually disappeared, and everything returned to the original state. This ability is really troublesome. Badgers couldn't help frowning. Marco, who is your opponent? Whitebeard asked. Blackbeard's number 1 and number 4 captains, Badges and Pizarro. Marco replied. Huh, these two jumping clowns. Let me tell them, Whitebeard demanded. Okay, Daddy. Marco smiled. He was already expecting it. He didn't know what expressions the two would have when they knew that Daddy was still alive. What's the matter? Marco, are you planning to give up? Badges was a little curious to see that Marco did not fly into the sky this time. With your ability, it is better to vote under Captain Blackbeard, presumably the captain will also value you. Pizarro said at this time. Huh, there is only one captain from birth to death. Are you interested in finding out? Advertisement. Marco's eyes condensed slightly, and he immediately passed the phone bug in his hand. Marco, what are you going to do? Badges took the call worm, but still didn't understand what Marco meant. At this time, a trembling voice came from the phone worm. Badge, Pizarro, say hello to Blackbeard for me and let him wash his head. An inexplicable fear spread from the hearts of Badges and Pizarro. The two looked at each other and both felt incredible. Whitebeard. Impossible, Whitebeard has died in the war at the top, who are you? Budgerston exclaimed. Guhahaha. Don't you even remember my voice, but don't worry, when we meet next time, I will make you fear engraved in your heart. Whitebeard's voice was like a demon, making both Badges and Pizarro fear and uneasy. But at the same time they are also full of doubts whether this is really Whitebeard or not. Although this kind of majesty made them frightened for an instant, that kind of king's aura could not be imitated. But they couldn't be sure with just one voice, just like Scudard did not immediately believe it. Stop scaring people here, Whitebeard is already dead, now is the era of Blackbeard. Badgers shouted calmly, but his heart was vaguely disturbed. Because of this voice, he was sure it was Whitebeard's, and Marco on the side saw them like this and couldn't help smiling triumphantly. The age of the old man is not over yet, you should probably worry about it. Not only does Blackbeard have no future, it will soon be a disaster. Marco's mocking voice shocked both of them. After all, the peak of Whitebeard had left deep marks in their hearts. But Badgers also released cruel words at the moment. Advertisement. Although letting go of the cruel words, both Badges and Pizarro were completely restless at this time, like the sea under a storm, and the waves were rough. They didn't have the thought of fighting anymore, they just wanted to tell Blackbeard about it right away. Marco, let you go today. Sooner or later, Whitebeard's old forces will be wiped out. Badges returned the phone worm to Marco and said. 2. I hope you can be so hard-hearted next time you see Daddy, so I won't send it. Malkay sent them away. Team leader. After Badges and Pizarro left, the crew immediately surrounded them. Marco was extremely excited at this time, facing all the crew members, the smile on his face couldn't hide the slightest. Every promised person, the old man is not dead yet, come with me to meet the old man. What? Father, he knew. Captain, what is going on? Where is Dad now? Hearing this news, all the crew members opened their mouths in surprise, and talked about each other. Even if it's the real Whitebeard, what about it? You can die the first time, you can die the second time. Daddy is with Scudard and the others, let's rush over, presumably they have also notified the other captains. Marco and his entourage set sail immediately. Everyone was excited and expectant. They all looked forward to the moment they met the old man. Only when they see the old man can they feel the truth that comes from the bottom of their hearts. At the same time, in addition to Marco, the other captains of Whitebeard also received the notice and rushed to hear. These people are in the same mood as Marco, and they are all advancing at the fastest speed. Chapter 187. The Whitebeard Pirates Reunion. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. The sun on the sea was particularly warm, and Whitebeard was lying quietly on a chair on the deck basking in the sun. And Squard and Whitebeard and others suffered some injuries because they had previously fought with Whitebeard too. So they are all resting while waiting for the arrival of other captains. With a thought to Whitebeard, a card that only he could see appeared on his palm. This card was obtained after Whitebeard killed Miss Bajan, although Miss Bajan's strength is not very strong. But at any rate, it was also a crew member of the Great Pirate Rocks, so after killing her, a card appeared. Hockey promotion. Every time you use hockey effectively, you will get a promotion, and finally Conqueror's Hockey can be promoted to the Emperor Hockey. The so-called effective use of hockey refers to hitting the enemy with hockey within a certain period of time. In addition, the armed color and the sighted color will eventually enter the ultimate form. It's just that it doesn't say how many times you need to use hockey to get the final evolution. Whitebeard thought that the number of times should not be less, and it may also be related to the scope of use and so on. It seems I will need to use hockey a lot in the future. Whitebeard took the card back, and 900 shadows of the ship appeared in the distance. Father, it seems someone is coming. The helmsman in charge of the observation reported immediately. Really, is it Marco and the others? Whitebeard asked. Yes, it's them, the helmsman said in surprise after seeing it clearly. Whitebeard then stood up and was ready to meet them. He stood high on the deck in front, cutting through the clouds with a big knife. It's Daddy, really Daddy. After seeing Whitebeard's tall figure, Marco and the others shouted in excitement. Advertisement. Even Marco couldn't wait, he immediately turned into a phoenix and flew over. Father. Marco's excited voice echoed in the sky. Daddy is really not dead, great. Our Whitebeard pirates can recreate brilliance. On the other side, Diamond Joe's, Foil Vista and others rushed towards here, and tears were well in their eyes after seeing Whitebeard's figure. Marco, are you hurt? When Marco came to Whitebeard on the deck, Whitebeard noticed some damage to his clothes. It's all small problems, it doesn't affect it at all. Marco shook his head vigorously, and then tears couldn't help streaming down. Father, I thought my life was over, and the Whitebeard pirates was over. It's okay, I'm already back. The humiliation you have suffered before, I will let those repay them in the future. Whitebeard immediately comforted. Father. At this time, Joe's, Beasta and other captains all boarded the boat one after another, and they all cried bitterly after seeing the old man. Children, today is a special day. In order to commemorate my resurrection and to look forward to our new era in the future, we must celebrate it. Seeing how excited these children were, Whitebeard took the initiative to let them take a swig. That's right, guys, take out all the wine in the cabin. Marco ordered immediately. So, on this sea, a lively scene appeared. These captains and crew have suffered too much haze before, and now after seeing Whitebeard, it is time to let them go. Cheers. Advertisement. Whitebeard had a drink with everyone. While the group was celebrating, a marine ship appeared in the distance, slowly patrolling in this direction. This marine ship is not large in scale, and it is a Marine Vice Admiral Charles. Master Vice Admiral, a group of pirates appeared in front of them, seeming to be celebrating something. The observer quickly discovered the scene ahead. Can you see what the pirate is? Vice Admiral in the Marine Cape asked faintly. It is common to encounter pirates when patrolling the sea, but with his close proximity to Admiral, he rarely can't solve it. ABFA. Report. There are more than a dozen pirate ships around, they all seem to be together, there seems to be Marco. The observer immediately replied. Marco. Isn't that the captain of the Whitebeard pirates, more than a dozen ships, did he gather the main force of Whitebeard? Marine Vice Admiral couldn't help frowning. Since the death of Whitebeard, they should have been dispersed and caught in the struggle of all forces. But now they are gathered, is there any plan to avenge Whitebeard? Come, let me see. Marine Vice Admiral snatched the binoculars, his lens kept moving, looking for familiar figures on more than a dozen ships. Soon, a familiar figure came into view, and Vice Admiral's pupils enlarged a lot in an instant. That is, Vice Admiral was shocked to confirm it several times before he was convinced that he had read it correctly. That figure is Whitebeard, who has been confirmed dead at Marineford. How could this happen? Whitebeard is not dead yet. Vice Admiral was full of surprise and doubt. He stared at Whitebeard's picture for a long time, and there was nothing wrong with it. Master Vice Admiral, what should we do now? The subordinates were a little disturbed when they saw Vice Admiral in such a panic for the first time. Advertisement. Turn around. Quickly turn around. Vice Admiral regained his senses and commanded with a panic expression on his face. If this is true Whitebeard, although he doesn't know how he was resurrected, he can be sure that he will definitely be torn apart. The marine ship quickly turned away, and because the distance was too far, and Whitebeard was immersed in the joy of celebration, no one noticed the appearance of Marine. Naval Headquarters. Baloo. Hello, this is Naval Headquarters. This is Charles Vice Admiral, and I want to report an important matter to the Marshal immediately. Marshal Akainu, Charles Vice Admiral wants to report to you. Akainu immediately answered the phone, his tone a little impatient. He felt that there should be nothing important at Vice Admiral level that needs to be reported to him directly. Marshal, Whitebeard is still alive. Vice Admiral's excited voice came. What nonsense are you talking about? Akainu thought he was crazy for a moment. It's true. Not long ago, I discovered that Whitebeard's captain had gathered together, and then I checked that Whitebeard was also there. Vice Admiral almost said hysterically. Charles, are you sure you are joking? Whitebeard has been killed in the war on the top. Akainu's voice began to become serious. Marshal, I swear, what I said is true. You can send someone to check if you don't believe it, but the main force of Whitebeard is there, at least Admiral must be sent. Hearing that, Akainu's eyes flashed with surprise. Charles, report your coordinate position. If what you say is false, I promise you will pay the price. Chapter 188. Admiral Kizaru is coming. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. After putting down the phone, Akainu was also full of shock. He had no idea that this would happen. At the time of the war at the top, Whitebeard's death was absolutely true. However, although Charles has repeatedly confirmed that this matter is of great importance after all, if the news is rashly released, it is actually Charles who got it wrong. So this is a super big oolong, it's spread out, marine as a joke. So Akainu immediately gave Kizaru an order to check the coordinates given by Charles. However, Akainu's message to him only said that Whitebeard's captain was gathering there, and Whitebeard was not mentioned. Even if Whitebeard's affair is an oolong, so many captains still need an admiral to sit in. After receiving the order, Kizaru set off soon, just like when he was on a mission in Sabayati before, Kizaru looked relaxed. Although those people are the captains of the legendary big pirate Whitebeard, they are far from admiral's level. On the other side, Whitebeard is still celebrating lively, and the crew are cheering wanton. They don't know yet, Kizaru's ship has approached unknowingly. And Kizaru, who looked relaxed, didn't realize that he would soon face a big crisis beyond his expectations. Soon, Kizaru's ships will be able to see those of Whitebeard. Kizaru-sama, they are right ahead. Kizaru looked forward lazily when he heard the reminder from his subordinates. Yo-yo, there are still a lot of people. I don't know what these people are plotting. It's really unnerving. Hey, just grab a few captains and go home. Advertisement. Kizaru immediately got up, then jumped into the air at the speed of light, kicking out a laser projectile directly. A dazzling light flashed from the sky, until the laser bomb came close to someone who realized it was wrong. Be careful, there is an attack. Some people were lying on the ground immediately, they had no time to dodge. Clang. With a light swipe of a big knife, Kizaru's laser projectile directly hit the surface of the sea, immediately forming a wave of several meters high. In Kizaru's puzzled gaze, a tall figure slowly stood up, and at the same time a familiar voice suddenly appeared. Long time no see, monkey. Only Whitebeard dared to call Kizaru so contemptuously. Whitebeard stood facing Kizaru at the forefront, and beside him, Marcochos and others were all standing neatly. Admiral Kizaru, I didn't expect him to be here. Daddy, let's deal with him. Marco said without fear. Although Marco's strength is still very insufficient compared to Admiral, he feels fearless by his father's side. Now you are still struggling to deal with Admiral, I'll do it myself. Whitebeard shook his head. At this time, Kizaru looked incredible. Whitebeard, it's weird, aren't you dead? Are you resurrected? What the hell? There is a guy next to him who is very similar to Whitebeard. Is it Whitebeard's son? It's unbelievable. The more Kizaru looked at Whitebeard, the more confused he became. The appearance was almost the same. Hey, are you Whitebeard? How did you survive? Kizaru cried out very suspiciously. Unbelievable, this proves that my age is not over yet. Whitebeard replied with a playful tone. Well, I really don't understand, I'll try you myself. Advertisement. Kizaru felt that it would be a waste of time to think about it, so it's better to just take a shot and see how many caddies this person has. If it is defeated at once, then obviously it is not the real Whitebeard, just a fake. Kizaru's figure disappeared into the sky instantly, and the next moment he came to Whitebeard's body. Old Daddy, Marco and other talents have just reacted, and they haven't had time to take any action. And Kizaru had gathered all the photons on his leg and kicked Whitebeard at the speed of light. However, Whitebeard did not dodge, and directly covered armament hockey on the part of his body that was kicked out. At the same time, the body released a strong conqueror's hockey. Kizaru's attack kicked Whitebeard without even leaving a trace, but in front of the hockey, it was a little bit impenetrable. Everyone, go back. Marco immediately made everyone else back, and at the same time used his own power to dissolve a part of hockey. They couldn't bear hockey of the old man. Sky Kong Yunjian. Kizaru immediately used photons to condense into a sword of light and began to use his superb swordsmanship to attack Whitebeard. Zero seeking flowers, zero. It's useless, monkey, I am no longer the old Whitebeard. Whitebeard's calm voice faintly uttered, his figure still motionless. It just used the power of shock to form a barrier, blocking Kizaru's sword attack. And no matter how Kizaru attacks, he cannot break Whitebeard's barrier. You are really Whitebeard, how did you come back to life? By now, Kizaru realized that the Whitebeard in front of him was indeed a fake. Gum ha ha ha, advertisement. Whitebeard laughed. It seemed that his resurrection really surprised everyone, but he didn't want to discuss it all the time. Monkey, although it is a bit old, I still want to ask. Point 00. Will you be my son? Whitebeard asked with a smile. Kizaru was not angry either, but he refused immediately. How to put it, this is not good, I just want to be an admiral honestly. Kizaru answered seriously. That's a shame. After speaking, Whitebeard immediately covered hockey with his fist, and at the same time shrouded a shocking force. Directly hitting Kizaru's abdomen, Kizaru wanted to avoid at the speed of light in an instant, but a shock force directly distorted a small part of the space. Kizaru was forced to pause for a moment, and at this moment, Whitebeard's powerful punch hit him. Although Kizaru uses the fruit ability to the maximum extent to reduce his own damage. But he still didn't expect Whitebeard's power to be so strong, he would be seriously injured because of this. It seems to underestimate the enemy. After receiving this blow, Kizaru immediately retreated with strength, pulling a long distance at the speed of light. He remembered that when he was just starting out, Akainu repeatedly asked him to be careful. Bakichang Guyu. Kizaru suddenly emitted countless dazzling light bullets in midair. In order to protect his sons, Whitebeard could only help everyone defend. A huge barrier formed by the force of shock shrouded in midair, blocking all the light bullets. When the attack stopped, Kizaru had disappeared without a trace at the speed of light. End. Chapter 189. Marine will do it. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Damn it, let him run away. Marco said with some regret. Because he thinks that Kizaru will definitely bring back the news of his father's resurrection to naval headquarters. This is also a trouble for them, because now Whitebeard has just been resurrected. Some of his own forces also need to be reconsolidated, and if they are strongly attacked by the naval headquarters at this time, they may be attacked back and forth. Because those so-called new 4 emperors will definitely not let them go, especially Blackbeard. After the previous news, Blackbeard will also get the news of Whitebeard's resurrection immediately, and there should be some action at that time. Haha, it doesn't matter. I don't have any deep hatred for Kizaru. Leaking news is nothing. Am I afraid that others will know that Whitebeard is still alive? Whitebeard knew what Marco was worried about. He didn't care if he didn't. 9-0. Anyway, his current strength has already been tempered to a height after the previous round of the world. So what's to be afraid of? Whitebeard doesn't feel the slightest pressure in his heart. You should eat, drink and drink, don't worry about other things. What's the situation? There is an old man. Whitebeard said to everyone. This remark also made everyone feel very at ease. With the old man, I don't care when the sky falls. On the other side, Kizaru was injured and hurried back to naval headquarters to inform Akainu of the situation. What? Is it really Whitebeard? When Akainu heard the confirmation message from Kizaru, his face was shocked. Advertisement. It's true. I was injured a little bit. He looks completely different from the state of the war. He is not a bit old. Not only is he full of energy, but he is also very powerful. Kizaru reported the situation to Akainu in 151, which surprised Akainu and said to a high level. Whitebeard is not only resurrected. Is it stronger than before? Oh my god, has the legendary 4 Emperors peak returned? How did this happen? Isn't someone impersonating it? Akainu frowned, gritted his teeth, and asked for confirmation again. Because this matter is too important, the resurrection of Whitebeard will probably shake the entire world government. And the whole pattern may change again, and Akainu can't imagine that Whitebeard can come back to life. After all, this is incredible. So he had to confirm it several times. I can guarantee that it must be Whitebeard. Not only does it have the same shape and appearance, but Shockfruit's abilities can't be faked. Kizaru had already answered with certainty. Akainu's eyes fell into thinking, nodded, and let him go to rest. After the notification, a marine meeting will be held immediately, and all the vice admiral and above who stayed at the headquarters will come and participate. Akainu immediately issued an order to convene a meeting. Because the matter was very important, the meeting was held on the same day. In the spacious meeting room, Marine's main high-level seat was seated in the main seat. There are former Marshal Marine, now Marine Chief Inspector, Sengoku of Buddha, Iron Fist Garp, Chief of Staff Suru, Akainu, Kizaru, Momosugi and so on. The other Vice Admiral were at the back of the meeting. Akainu, is there something so serious that I have to summon us all? Sengoku ate snacks leisurely, and said in a relaxed tone. Advertisement. Although it is still a major inspector, it seems to have retired. I saw Akainu stood up immediately, the expression on his face was very solemn. Everyone, after a previous investigation, we found a dozen captains of Whitebeard gathering there somewhere in the sea. Akainu made a foreshadowing first, because the news was too shocking. Isn't it just a group of pirates gathered? Whitebeard's forces don't need to use marine, right now they are in a lot of trouble. He Vice Admiral said lightly, he felt that this matter was not enough to hold a meeting of this level, so he made a big fuss. You are too anxious, this is not the point. Kizaru reminded from the side. Okay, then can you tell me something shocking happened? He Vice Admiral asked again. Akainu looked around for a week, and everyone around him was waiting for his answer, only to see him change his mouth. There, we found Whitebeard, he is still alive. As soon as these words came out, the entire conference room was as quiet as the deep sea, and there was no sound. Those Vice Admiral who were more peripheral were stunned, and even suspected that they had heard it wrong. Who? The expression on Sengoku's face suddenly became serious, and the hand holding the snack stopped zero. Whitebeard, he's still alive. Akainu emphasized again. Impossible, Whitebeard is obviously dead. Garp, who had not made a sound, suddenly slapped the table and shouted. He is dead, but the news we have now is that he is still alive and injured Kizaru. Akainu explained. Sengoku and others looked at Kizaru immediately, and saw Kizaru nodding slowly. Yes, Whitebeard has become stronger than before. I am not his opponent at all. Advertisement. Although Akainu and Kizaru both said so sure, the news was too shocking after all. Sengoku, Garp and others are still dubious. I didn't see things with my own eyes, but I couldn't believe it. If Whitebeard is really not dead, I request that a warship be sent to investigate. This time I will take a trip myself and I have to confirm it myself. Garp said firmly. Whether he asked them to agree or not, he was going to take a trip. Whitebeard, is he really alive? Okay, you can go, but I believe Kizaru. I want to inform all Marine generals of this news. Akainu also expressed his attitude. You are Marshal Marine now, you can make this decision. Sengoku nodded. Whitebeard, how did he achieve his resurrection? He Vice Admiral was shocked by the waves in his heart. I don't know, come back from the dead, even the rocks and 5.0 Roger back then will find it incredible, wait for Garp to come back and see what he says. Sengoku also felt a little unbelievable, but based on the performance of Kizaru and Akainu, he already believed most of it. Garp was impatient and set off from the headquarters on a warship after the meeting. For Whitebeard, Garp is regarded as an enemy from his standpoint, but like Roger back then, Garp only thinks that Whitebeard is an old friend. Whitebeard, are you really alive? What happened? Garp stood in front of the warship's deck, looking at the vast blue sea, his heart was full of expectation. However, it has been a long time since Kizaru left at this time, and Whitebeard and others have already finished their celebration party. So Whitebeard and others are no longer in the sea before. Chapter 190. Garp is coming. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Somewhere in New World, Blackbeard and his men just occupied it. The island previously belonged to Whitebeard. Ha 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 ha. Blackbeard burst into laughter after completely occupying here. Whitebeard's site has almost been scraped by us. Shiryu of Rain next to Blackbeard said lightly. Since the death of Whitebeard, the Blackbeard pirates quickly took action and began to occupy the original site of Whitebeard. Of course, other 4 emperors also participated in some carve-ups, but because Blackbeard is relatively strong. And because Blackbeard has a better understanding of Whitebeard's sphere of influence, they occupy the most territory. Whitebeard is dead, and his turf is almost divided up. I think a new era is coming soon. Van Oka said. The crew of Blackbeard also began to cheer for Blackbeard, as if celebrating the advent of a new era. But the remnants of Whitebeard are always a scourge, and they have to be wiped out at 01 o'clock early. For Whitebeard, there are some shadows in Blackbeard's heart, especially when he was fighting on the top. Whitebeard almost killed him with his scarred body. The situation at the time made Blackbeard feel that his life was hanging by a thread, and an abyss-like shadow enveloped him. For everything about Whitebeard, Blackbeard wants to completely let them disappear from this world. Disappearing as if it never existed, so that the shadow in his heart might become lighter. And this also proves his ambition and means. Yes, he is an ambition who claims to be the pinnacle of the times. Ambition is a supreme compliment to him. Advertisement. Whitebeard is dead, those captains are vulnerable. Yuji Shiryu didn't care about it, his tone was very contemptuous. The others are not very good. Marco may be a bit tricky. I don't know how Badges and Pizarro went to deal with him. Although Blackbeard said so, he believed in his heart that they would definitely be able to solve Marco. At this moment, the figures of Badges and Pizarro quickly appeared on the sea in the distance. Captain, Captain. Badges and Pizarro started shouting far away. Soon they came closer, and Blackbeard was a little unhappy when he saw them panicking. What's wrong, have you encountered something? Blackbeard asked. Badges and Pizarro looked at each other, then calmed themselves down. Captain, Whitebeard is still alive. Badgers swallowed and said. What? Blackbeard was stunned for a moment, as if stunned. What are you talking about? Whitebeard has been killed by the captain. Shiryu of Rain didn't believe what they said, thinking they were wrong. It's true, Captain, when Badges and I were fighting Marco, he received a message from Whitebeard and we were on the scene. Yeah, we also talked to Whitebeard. It was indeed Whitebeard's voice. We will not admit it wrong. After Pizarro explained, Badges also added. But Yuji Shiryu still didn't believe it, and continued to ask, then have you seen Whitebeard? Advertisement. The two were silent and shook their heads. You haven't seen it. Why do you say that Whitebeard is still alive? Is it because you are afraid of Whitebeard and have hallucinations? What can be proved by the similarity of the voice to Whitebeard? Blackbeard was a little angry, and he couldn't accept the information that Whitebeard was still alive. Bahas, have you solved Marco? Shiryu of Rain asked a key question. No, at that time we wanted to report the news to the captain immediately. Badgers replied with some embarrassment. Yuji Shiryu laughed immediately, Then I understand, you two are not doing well, so you deliberately found such an excuse, right? The look of Badges and Pizarro was a bit awkward, because it is true that they did not complete the task. More importantly, they didn't have the slightest proof that Whitebeard was still alive, and it was indeed pale by what they said. And Blackbeard stared at them with a slight squint, showing a smile with an abyss. Bahas, is what he said is true? Did you make excuses on purpose? Blackbeard stared at the two of them, and the dark power of his hands was running, and a horrible breath immediately enveloped the two of them. Captain, what I said is true. I think the news will be spread out soon. It will be easy to verify that what we are saying is true or not. Badges hurriedly yelled. He felt that he had been pressured by Blackbeard's dark power to breathe out, and even if he wanted to resist, he might not be able to do it. Hearing this, Blackbeard immediately withdrew his dark power, and he smiled fiercely. Then wait and see, if you deceive me, I won't forgive you. Somewhere in New World, Whitebeard has completely rectified his power. Although the team has not returned to its peak period, it has recovered a lot. Marco, next you lead them to take back some of the surrounding turf first, this matter will be left to you. Whitebeard arranged for Marco on the boat. Advertisement. Father, I will finish the task soon. Marco was full of confidence. And just as Marco was about to take people off, he suddenly saw 900 marine warships and immediately stood on guard. Father, there is Marine again. Marco called out immediately. Oh, it was Kizaru last time, who is it this time? Whitebeard was also slightly interested, not knowing who Marine had sent. The figure on the marine warship gradually became clear as the distance got closer. Whitebeard quickly realized that it was Garp. So it was him. Not only did Whitebeard relax, he was a little pleased. Marco, you go, it's okay here. Whitebeard reminded him, and Marco left immediately. Garp also saw Whitebeard. When the familiar body appeared in Garp's eyes, his expression was moved. It turned out to be Whitebeard. How could this be possible? The surprised expression on Garp's face also appeared. Old friend, it's been a long time. Whitebeard stood on the bow, facing Garp's direction and shouted. Don't call me a brother, let me try your strength. Garp jumped and came to Whitebeard's boat, facing him. Garp can't believe his eyes now. He wants to see if the person in front of him is really capable and if he is really Whitebeard. Your temper is as hot as ever. If that's the case, don't be surprised. Whitebeard smiled. Chapter 191. Garp vs Whitebeard. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Garp took the lead and rushed directly at Whitebeard with an iron fist. Garp does not have any gorgeous fruit abilities, a pair of iron fists is his most powerful strength. The powerful armament hockey instantly covered Garp's fist and blasted Whitebeard with thunder and lightning. Seeing Whitebeard raised his hand, a powerful shock force evaporates in front of him, forming a solid barrier. Garp hit the barrier with a punch, causing a strong shock, which immediately shook the entire hull. However, this punch failed to penetrate Whitebeard's barrier defense, and Garp continued to attack with iron fists. Under Garp's frantic attack, there was a crack in this barrier, although it hadn't been broken yet. But Whitebeard also secretly marveled at Garp's attack power. At this time Whitebeard also began to fight back. After all, he said that he wanted Garp to see his power, but it could not be just defense. Whitebeard also covered hockey with his fist, and at the same time enveloped the shocking force on it, and then instantly removed the barrier. Whitebeard, old fellow. Garp yelled and waved his fist, colliding with Whitebeard's fist. At the moment of the collision, Garp instantly felt a burst of powerful force passing through his fist. The shocking force penetrated directly into his arm, and at the same time, Whitebeard's hockey also penetrated his hockey. The strong shock force made Garp's entire arm numb, and he couldn't lift his strength for a long time, as if he was paralyzed. What a powerful force, is this still the old injury Whitebeard? Garp didn't care about his arm, but was surprised at Whitebeard. Advertisement. Judging from the physical condition of Whitebeard during the war, Whitebeard was definitely not Garp's opponent at that time, and even Garp could defeat him with absolute strength. However, now, they only played for a while, and Garp felt that his strength was too far behind Whitebeard. At their level, if there is not much difference in strength, no one side will get such an obvious advantage. Just like Akainu and Aokiji, it took 3 days and 3 nights for the two to separate the winner. In the end, Akainu narrowly won. Therefore, Garp, who was suppressed by Whitebeard as soon as he came up, was shocked at this moment. Guhahaha, now you can understand my strength. Garp had to admit that the guy in front of him was indeed Whitebeard, and he was much stronger. Hey, I didn't expect that you really didn't die. Garp stopped, and then sat down on the pretend like no one. Haha, I, Whitebeard, died so easily, I am the pinnacle of this era, and I will continue to be king in this world. Whitebeard also sat down next to Garp, and the two who were still fighting just now began to chat like old friends. Garp glanced at Whitebeard, his eyes a little emotional. Although I don't know what happened, I am still very relieved that you are dead. It is always regrettable. Garp's words were also quite sensational, and Whitebeard couldn't help his nose sore. Do you think it's time for the older generation of us to call for the curtain call? You think it's the world of young people now? Whitebeard looked into the distance and asked casually. It's time for us to end, no matter how glorious that year, but at this age, it's time to enjoy life. Whitebeard laughed. Advertisement. Garp said a little moved, and Whitebeard heard his overtones. Do you want me to go home for retirement? Even if I am still alive, I should fade out of the center of the world, right? Whitebeard asked. Garp didn't answer, as if he had defaulted. If it was the old Whitebeard before, then there is nothing wrong with Garp. But now Whitebeard has a completely new look. Not only has his body remained at its peak, but he has also died once. These will all become his wealth for opening the world of Tuba. Therefore, Whitebeard naturally disagrees with Garp's words. Garp, I understand that you don't want to be an enemy of me, but I am no longer the weak me when I was in the war. I have the ability to fight against Marine, and my mentality is still very young, so you don't have to worry about me. Garp couldn't persuade Whitebeard to say anything, and the two of them talked about the current world situation one after another. Whitebeard said that he would kill Blackbeard sooner or later. It was only a matter of time. For that traitor, Whitebeard must be eliminated quickly. Then I won't talk about that. By the way, when I come to you, don't you have a drink? Garp asked with a smile. Bring the wine, Whitebeard said immediately. So, in the following time, Whitebeard and Garp started drinking together. The two chatted while drinking, and Garp also recalled a lot of past times during this period. Do you remember that when I joined forces with Roger, I was able to suppress Rock's pirate? Haha, of course I remember, but this happened a long time ago, and the world is changing too fast now. Advertisement. If Roger is still alive, I don't know what the situation is now. Maybe he is already the king of the world. Speaking of which, I'm a little sorry Roger. Is it because of Ace? Whitebeard and Garp chatted one by one, and Garp was also a little moist in his eyes. Garp didn't answer this question, he stood up after the last glass of wine. The news that you are still alive will shake the world soon. At that time, your situation may be a bit dangerous, and you have to prepare early. It's too early. I have to go back. I hope I will be all right when I meet next time. No promise. Garp left immediately after speaking, taking the warship back to naval headquarters. Wait, Garp, I will use my strength to prove everything. Whitebeard said in his heart as he watched Garp's back. After Garp returned to naval headquarters, Akainu Sengoku and others were waiting for his answer. Garp, are you sure? Is Whitebeard still alive? Sengoku asked directly. Yes, he is still alive, I am sure it is Whitebeard. Whitebeard replied decisively. Here, how did he come alive? He Vice Admiral looked incredible. How he survived is not important anymore. The important thing is that we have to find a way to eliminate this harm. Akainu immediately expressed his thoughts. Whitebeard is no longer what it used to be. His power has at least doubled compared to the time of the top war. I estimate that even the two admiral teaming up are not his opponents. Chapter 192. The World Shakes. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Whitebeard is no longer what it used to be. His power has at least doubled compared to the time of the top war. I estimate that even the two grand prizes are not his opponents. Garp fought Whitebeard, so he has his own judgment in his heart, and Garp feels that this judgment is already the lowest standard. In other words, Whitebeard's lowest standard of strength has to start with two admirals, which is already terrifying. Even so, we have to eliminate this scourge. Whitebeard is still alive, and the power of the pirates has grown more and more. If they are united, Marine will not be able to fight. Akainu felt that Whitebeard was still alive in a serious crisis, but Sengoku did not approve of it. Akainu, this matter should be considered long-term. After all, Whitebeard's current strength is not even Garp's opponent. If you really want to do something, it will definitely shake the world. Sengoku shook his head, and Garp also said, I shouldn't act against Whitebeard now, because Whitebeard can do a lot for Marine. Well, Whitebeard will definitely not let Blackbeard go. There must be a battle between them. No matter who loses or wins, Marine can take advantage of the fisherman's profit. He Vice Admiral also agreed with this. After more than 900 high-level discussions, it was finally decided not to mobilize troops to Whitebeard for the time being, and to release news to the world at the same time. Let everyone know that Whitebeard is still alive. The newspaper carrying Whitebeard alive quickly spread all over the world, and for a while, the whole world shook. Whitebeard's related information is being discussed everywhere, and many people can't believe it at the first time. Advertisement. But New World's Whitebeard sent news one after another, constantly regaining his territory. Therefore, in more than 10 days, most people had to believe this fact. At a time when the whole world was shocked, the Marine government also issued a bounty for Whitebeard. The reward amount is as high as 5.564.8 million, which is the same as the original Roger. As soon as this incident happened, the whole world shook again. Marine issued such a reward order, which undoubtedly pushed Whitebeard to Roger's level. To be precise, it should be admitted that Whitebeard has achieved Roger's strength, which cannot help but plunge the whole world into various madness. On Whitebeard's side, he didn't care that the whole world was discussing him. Very soon ABFA, he conquered most of the lost ground occupied by Blackbeard. And during this period Blackbeard has been avoiding the battle with Whitebeard, and now Blackbeard also fully knows the fact that Whitebeard is still alive. And Blackbeard also heard that Whitebeard pushed back Kizaru and Garp successively, and Whitebeard's strength has surpassed the previous one. Therefore, Blackbeard didn't dare to confront it head-on, and could only retreat continuously, and finally handed over the occupied territory. However, the world is so big that there are some arrogant pirates who don't believe that Whitebeard is still alive, and they always come to Whitebeard for trouble. Although this is not a problem for Whitebeard, they are sometimes as annoying as flies. Whitebeard, it's impossible to be alive, that must be a fake. Somewhere in the sea area of New World, two pirate groups gathered together, the leader of which was a pirate with a bounty of 300 million, named Yaluoje. In New World, a bounty of 300 million is not a big deal at all, but because the process of entering New World is smooth, this arrogant hardly suffers from great difficulties. Advertisement. Therefore, this person did not have a clear understanding of himself, and he actually had the idea of taking Whitebeard's power. Surprisingly, this group of subordinates still listened with gusto. Captain, but that Whitebeard defeated Kizaru and Garp, even if it is fake, we are not opponents. Faced with doubts, Eroge was confident. What do you know? Don't you doubt it at all, the real Whitebeard probably doesn't have the power to repel Admiral and Garp. Moreover, there are 4 forces similar to Whitebeard: Kaido, Ant, Redhead, and Blackbeard. They are all the same, but Marine just issued a Whitebeard bounty order with the same bounty as Roger at this time. Isn't it weird? Captain, what do you mean? The subordinates heard it in the mist. There must be a reason for this. It is definitely not a coincidence. It must be Marine who wants to use this to get the big pirates to conquer Whitebeard. Therefore, there is only one truth. This Whitebeard may have been arranged by Marine himself, in order to cause a pirate fight without a single soldier. In this way, Marine will be able to reap the benefits of the fishermen, so the so-called defeat of Kizaru and Garp is just a play for them. Aluoje firmly believed in his own conjecture, and after his analysis, these subordinates all felt very reasonable. Captain, shall we go to defeat the fake Whitebeard now? Yes, the slogan is to defeat Whitebeard. Down with Whitebeard, down with Whitebeard. Advertisement. These people set off in the mighty sea, and a pirate group in the distance witnessed all this. This group of idiots are killing their lives in vain. It was Kid who was called a supernova who was talking, and he knew the horror of Whitebeard. The ignorant is fearless. Kira next to him said, it turned out that the two pirate groups formed an alliance in New World. Perhaps the pattern is about to change soon. We should unite more pirate groups. Kid has already begun to foresee that Whitebeard may destroy a 4 emperor's position in a short time. You are right, our current strength is still too weak. Kira also agreed. Not only are these supernovas shocked and frightened by Whitebeard's information, it is better than Kaido was shocked when he learned that Whitebeard was still alive. Although Kaido is very conceited about his own strength, Kaido dare not provoke Whitebeard at all when Whitebeard is still alive. I wanted to take advantage of Whitebeard's death to reap some benefits, but I didn't expect Whitebeard to reappear in front of the world. This is definitely not good news for him. What's more terrifying is that Kaido also heard that Whitebeard's strength is stronger than before. Moreover, Marine released Whitebeard's bounty as Roger's, which clearly puts Whitebeard's position above the other 4 emperors. Kaido couldn't help being angry, but at the same time he felt ashamed. Damn Whitebeard, is he immortal too? Kaido couldn't help asking. Captain, do we want to unite with other 4 emperors? Whitebeard is not dead, it is a threat to all of us, said Jack the Drow, one of the 3 plagues. Chapter 193. Natural Fruit Ability. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Combine with other 4 emperors. I don't need to do this yet. I think Blackbeard will definitely be unable to sit still at first, and he will definitely act. Kaido is a little bit disdainful about the association with other 4 emperors. Because this is tantamount to indirectly admitting that his strength is too far apart from that of Whitebeard, which is really detrimental to his face. Kaido wanted to wait for Blackbeard's action, and then waited for an opportunity. He felt that Whitebeard would definitely not target him for the time being. And the other 4 emperors, red hair pirates. Redhead was shocked the first time he learned the news that Whitebeard was still alive, but soon he felt a hint of joy. What a terrible person, he is a person who has already held a funeral, but he can reappear in the world. Does this guy not consider his friend's mentality at all? The red hair said to the crew as if joking. Captain, now the whole world is caught in the shock of Whitebeard. Marine issued Whitebeard's bounty order to push him to the forefront. Ben Beckman analyzed it calmly, and this made the red hair more agree. I heard that Whitebeard alone repelled Kizaru and Garp. I think his current strength is not what it used to be. I have to find time to see him. In addition, send people to pay more attention to the movements of other 4 emperors. Red Hair is also very clever, especially in these turbulent and sensitive times. The actions of any party may be infinitely amplified. In the shock of the world, there is only one 4 emperor who doesn't care much, and that is Bigmom, the 4 emperors who are called the Ant. The Ant doesn't seem to care much about the news that Whitebeard is still alive. Her goal in life is only about eating. Eating a variety of delicacies is the most important thing for her. Mom, Whitebeard is still alive. Will our plan to attack the Fishman Island continue? Kata Curry said. Advertisement. Because after the death of Whitebeard, the Ant focused on the Fishman Island, where there are delicious food. However, the Fishman Island was formerly the site of Whitebeard. When Whitebeard is dead, they can naturally occupy it fearlessly. But now that Whitebeard is still alive, they have to consider this issue, so Kata Curry suspended the plan to capture. He thought the Ant would reconsider. Who knows that the Ant is also very stubborn at the moment. What are you talking about? How can the plan be suspended? Of course, we must continue, and capture the Fishman Island as soon as possible. The Ant's performance was very decisive, and no one dared to defy him. However, considering the seriousness of the matter, Kata Curry wanted to continue to persuade the Ant. Mom, but Whitebeard is more powerful now than before. It might be against us to provoke him at this time. Kata Curry thought very carefully. He was not worried that he would not be able to fight Whitebeard. But even if it can defeat Whitebeard, it will cost a lot of power, and I am afraid the entire pirate group will consume a lot. Moreover, the situation in New World has become more and more complicated. With the current Whitebeard, there are basically 5 emperors on the sea. Therefore, in this case, if any 2 forces fought, they would soon be beaten by other 4 emperors. Therefore, Kata Curry naturally does not want her Ant to take this risk. But the Ant went crazy. Where can she think calmly? Her huge body directly caused a wave of shaking. The anger spread to the surroundings along with her strength, and a strong haki swept the surroundings. Go. Go quickly and capture the Fishman Island. I want all the food there. The majestic voice seemed to be an ultimatum. Kata Curry has no choice but to reschedule. Advertisement. The Alorgo Pirates Alliance, which had previously wanted to defeat Whitebeard, finally found Whitebeard's position. Look, that's Whitebeard. Everyone, let's send someone to distract Whitebeard's captains, and then I will attack Whitebeard. At that time, as long as we can kill this counterfeit, we will be famous all over the world and become one of New World's great pirates. As if dreaming, Jay Arrow deliberated his plans for the younger brothers, while his eyes were on the boat leaning on the dock in the distance. Whitebeard was on it. These days, as Whitebeard regained lost ground everywhere, almost none of his men had a rest. So today Whitebeard is to let everyone rest while coating the boat. At this moment, a cannonball was launched from a distance. 0. Seeking flowers. 0. Yep. Whitebeard noticed the shell for the first time, and saw him immediately raise his knife. With a stroke to the sky, a sword gas suddenly went vertically and horizontally, directly cutting the cannonball in half, and exploding in the sky. There is a sneak attack. In that direction, damn it, solve them immediately. Foil Beasta was right next to Whitebeard, and he soon discovered who was attacking them. It was a ship in the distance. So he led people to attack immediately, and the other captains were not here for the time being. There was only one Whitebeard left beside Whitebeard, and he was a little dazed to see everyone else gone. Father, what am I going to do? Why are they all gone? .00. Advertisement. They went to fight. Whitebeard replied. Ah, then I want to go too. Whitebeard too was a little excited, and stood up to run. Don't worry, there will be someone playing with you here. Whitebeard said with a smile. At this time, a lore brother jumped up from the back of the boat, and then punched Whitebeard. Although it was a few meters apart, an air cannon was fired from that punch of Aluo Jay. HMPH, my name is Brother Yaluo, one of the future 4 emperors. You fake Whitebeard, let me expose you. Alor Jay was standing on the deck and speaking without shame. He was very satisfied with his plan, because the people in Whitebeard were successfully led away by his men. At this moment, there was only a fool who looked a little stunned beside Whitebeard. However, the blow caused no trace on Whitebeard's body, which surprised him slightly. This kind of offensive power is nothing to Whitebeard. With his physical strength, he can't even bother to open his defenses. Without looking back, Whitebeard swung the big sword backwards, a sword aura flashed out. I saw that Aeroge's figure immediately hollow up, as if it were air, quickly drifting away. Yep, there was a slight surprise for Whitebeard. He thought it was just an ordinary stinky fish and rotten shrimp, but he didn't expect there to be something else. Wind fruit. Whitebeard saw it at a glance. This Yaluoj can turn his body into a wind, with strong speed and flexibility, and he can also use the wind to perform tricks, just like the air cannon just now. And Chapter 194. Be My Son. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. It's interesting. Whitebeard immediately found it interesting. He didn't expect the pirate in front of him to have such a rare Logia fruit. It is said that Fengfeng fruit is very rare, and it is also relatively high ranked in Logia fruit. You are the one who fights, and see if I will kill you. Whitebeard too showed a very strong desire to fight, and rushed over after raising his sword. Humph, don't be my way, get out of the way. Brother Arrow thought that Whitebeard too was just a little boy or something, so a strong wind blew up and tried to knock him off. But to his surprise, Whitebeard too didn't even move, but instead slashed at himself. A lorge quickly flashed past like a gust of wind, and the sword light of Whitebeard too cut directly to the sea, causing a wave of waves. This guy is very familiar with the basic application of 900 practice, but has not yet developed it. After observing this Allure brother for a while, Whitebeard basically analyzed his advantages and disadvantages. Fengfeng fruit has great potential, but the person in front of him has limited development, which is really a bit wasteful. After more than a dozen rounds of battle, Whitebeard too was already a little impatient. Although the strength of Whitebeard too crushed Arog is very good at dodge because of the characteristics of fruit ability. So Whitebeard too was very difficult to hit him, so that it dragged some time. Advertisement. But Whitebeard knew that as long as Whitebeard too was serious, even if he was reckless, he could put Arog to death. It's just a matter of time, and now Whitebeard too is already angry. Whitebeard too looked angry. He roared, "Stop it. Have the ability to punch me." As he said, the muscles of Whitebeard I's body began to swell, and the huge force made the ship sway slightly. This guy, something is wrong. Brother Arrow also felt a bit of danger from the breath of Whitebeard. He felt that the power of Whitebeard too seemed to have improved a lot. However, in order to prove himself, of course Allure brother would not retreat, but attacked while Whitebeard too was motionless. Arrow's figure turned into a very violent whirlwind and rushed straight to Whitebeard too. Wind-killing array. As Arogo hit Whitebeard too, the power of this trick expanded to its maximum. With Allure as the center, a circle like a tornado was formed around it, and the center was very violent. If it hadn't been for Whitebeard to offset part of the force with the shock, even the entire ship would have capsized. Whitebeard somewhat admired the young man in front of him, although he was his enemy. However, his performance also proved that he was a relatively simple person, and if he was accepted as a son, he would also be a loyal subordinate. Moreover, this person is not very strong. Even if he is killed, I am afraid that Whitebeard will not get any good cards. And once this person is killed, the Fengfeng fruit he carried will reappear in other places and will not be found for a while. Therefore, after weighing it down, it is more cost-effective to include this person in your own pirate group, but you have to have a potential subordinate to train as a captain. Advertisement. When Whitebeard thought about this, the situation over there quickly changed. Originally Allure was the attacker, but when his power also impacted Whitebeard too, it was as if it impacted on a very hard object. Brother Arrow himself was shocked in the opposite direction, and Whitebeard too suddenly opened his arms, releasing a burst of powerful hockey power. Allure was shot out in an instant, and he could not resist the explosive power of Whitebeard too. Whitebeard too followed the impact and prepared to kill Arog with a single blow. While Brother Arrow saw that he was about to die at the hands of Whitebeard too, but he couldn't avoid it. He felt that his life had come to an end. At this moment, Whitebeard raised his palm in the air, and a shocking force was generated in front of Whitebeard too out of thin air. This volatility instantly shook Whitebeard too back. "Father, what are you doing? Why don't you let me kill him?" Whitebeard too was a little dazed. "The battle is over, you go down and play," Whitebeard said. "All right." Although Whitebeard too was not yet full of fun, he also agreed with a shrug of his head. Whitebeard's heavy footsteps seemed to be stepping on the rhythm of Arrow's heartbeat. When Whitebeard approached, he was nervous to the extreme. "Oh my god, how could I think I could kill this man? Even if there are countless others, I am not his opponent." Seeing Whitebeard's abyss-like gaze and majestic face, Arogo suddenly regretted it in his heart. Before seeing Whitebeard, Allure was full of confidence, but at this moment, he would not believe that he was capable of killing Whitebeard anyway. Let alone killed, I couldn't even look directly into Whitebeard's gaze for more than a minute. Advertisement. The strong, even if they don't release hockey, still have an invisible majesty and murderous aura. If there is too much difference in strength, even just facing this murderous aura will make people feel breathless, very terrifying. "You are you going to kill me?" Aluo asked like a small animal caught in the throat of fate, with a hint of fear. His voice was shaking. There is no doubt that this is the most deadly crisis since he entered the new world. "It depends on your answer," Whitebeard said blankly. My answer," Brother Yaluo said tremblingly. "The pirate group in the distance belongs to you. You use them to lead my subordinates away, and then assassinate me alone, and talk about why you are doing this." Whitebeard's tone was very casual, but Eroge did not dare to answer casually. He thought about it for a while before answering. I thought you were an impersonating Whitebeard, so I wanted to test it out with 5.0. It's just a temptation. I think you clearly wanted to kill me just now. Whitebeard's eyes condensed, and the murderous aura raged invisibly like a storm. Sorry, I don't know if you are really Whitebeard, otherwise I would never dare to do anything to you. Aroko knelt on the ground tremblingly. Well, to tell the truth is a good boy. I never care about who wants to kill me, because no one can do it. What I care about is whether you, as a pirate, have something to appreciate. Whitebeard's remarks showed a calm look. Indeed, in the current situation, no one can defeat him alone. Brother Arrow lowered his head and didn't speak. He didn't know how to answer. At this time, Whitebeard's voice came again. Become my son. Chapter 195, Hawkeye's Challenge. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Become my son, Whitebeard said condescendingly. This sentence immediately made Luoji's heart startled. What do you mean? What do you mean? Brother Arrow asked blankly. He didn't quite understand what Whitebeard meant. But Whitebeard immediately said, become my son, you can get richer resources from me, and the future will be more brilliant. Whitebeard's deep gaze looked at J. Arrow, and he couldn't help being moved, and his head was blank. However, under the current circumstances, he has no chance to think at all. It is impossible for him to refuse the condition of being able to follow a big pirate. More importantly, Alorge has been deeply attracted by the charm of Whitebeard's strong man, so he quickly blurted out. I do. When Whitebeard heard the words, he smiled and nodded, and took Arog into his crew. Then, Arog immediately solved the misunderstanding with them. He led his pirate league map and all joined Whitebeard's pirate group. After reorganization, Whitebeard listed Arogo as the captain of his 16th division. Although his strength has now reached its peak, he is not afraid of anyone, but he cannot protect his O1 pirates at any time. After all, there are so many people, it is impossible to protect them one by one, so Whitebeard also hopes that his crew can be able to protect himself. Whitebeard just took a fancy to the potential of Alorge, which is very worth training. During this time, the title of Whitebeard One Piece has gradually spread, because his bounty is equal to Roger. So many people call him the second One Piece, but there are always some people who doubt it because they haven't seen it with their own eyes. Hawkeye is one of them. Hawkeye originally lived in the castle on Krykana Island, and also took Zoro as a disciple. Advertisement. But after hearing Whitebeard's information, Hawkeye has been unable to restrain his impulse. At first, Hawkeye wanted to see for himself whether the man was really alive and how he was resurrected. Another important reason is that Hawkeye heard that Whitebeard has become more powerful today. So Hawkeye wanted to fight him very much. When he was at the top of the war, his slash was blocked by Diamond Joe's. Therefore, he failed to play against Whitebeard, which is a pity for him. In the luxurious castle, this man with a black top had decided to leave here to find Whitebeard. Perona, I'll leave it to you when I leave. Hawkeye said plainly, although he has always regarded Perona as a casual meal, but he has been getting along for so long. Perona is like her maid, and Hawkeye has long been used to treating her like this. Ah, are you going to take Mr. Zoro and leave with me? Wouldn't I be the only one left? Perona was aggrieved. Don't worry, we will be back soon. Zoro comforted behind Hawkeye. For this trip, Zoro is also full of fighting spirit. His biggest goal now is to become stronger and watch the battle between the strong. For him, it will undoubtedly have a very big promotion effect. So, Hawkeye took Zoro out of the castle, and went out to sea in Hawkeye's exclusive boat. Along the way, Hawkeye met some pirates, all of whom were discussing legendary things about Whitebeard. After listening to these real rumors, Hawkeye still didn't fully believe it. Although people are talking about Whitebeard and seem to have accepted the resurrection of Whitebeard, I still have to verify it with my own eyes to prove my doubts. After Hawkeye finished speaking, Zoro also nodded. Advertisement. Yes, but I heard that Whitebeard is very powerful, it should be true. If it is true, then I will have to fight one more. I want to see how far I am from him. Hawkeye is looking forward to it, and Zoro is also looking forward to it. He is eager to watch the battle between the two strong men. Since learning with Hawkeye, Zoro has deeply felt his own shortcomings. Although I had worked very hard in the past, I thought my strength had already reached a certain height. But after studying with Hawkeye, he felt that he was still a long way from being a real master. Only the stronger the strength, the more understanding the distance between the strong. Only by watching the battle of the strong can you improve your strength more quickly. After a period of sailing, Hawkeye finally found Whitebeard's location. This result was hard-won, and they also went through many inquiries. At this time, Whitebeard had already dispersed his captains. After all, they couldn't stay by their side all the time. And now is the time when the situation is already tense, and we need to protect our territory. Currently, There is only one Joe's and Whitebeard too with Whitebeard, plus some small crew members. Whitebeard. Hawkeye first shouted, standing on the boat, showing a tall body. Whitebeard was instructing Joe's to use hockey, and turned his head when he heard the sound. Looking around, a man with short hair wearing a black top hat, a black cloak, and a black knife with a cross on his back appeared not far away. It's Hawkeye. Advertisement. Whitebeard recognized the familiar figure. Why did he come here? Whitebeard was slightly strange. Hawkeye quickly approached the boat, and 900 looked at Whitebeard and felt shocked in his heart. After all, Whitebeard's death information had been confirmed before, and no one would have thought that he would come out again. Even if I heard the news of Whitebeard all the way, when Whitebeard really appeared in front of me, I would be a little shocked. At this time Zoro also stared at Whitebeard. That tall body showed the majesty of an emperor. Even just looking at him, I can feel a sense of oppression in my heart, even making people breathless. Is this the One Piece? Zoro muttered in his heart, and now the world is spreading the name of Whitebeard One Piece. Soon, the boat approached. Hawkeye jumped onto Whitebeard's boat very gracefully, and Zoro followed. 7 warlords of the sea, Hawkeye Mahawk. Joe's on the boat immediately recognized the person and acted on guard. Whitebeard, are you real Whitebeard? Hawkeye didn't mean anything, and asked straightforwardly. However, although the tone was dull, there was already a wave of ups and downs in Hawkeye's heart. Because Hawkeye had seen Whitebeard before, and now such a close contact, the familiar feeling really made him feel that it was impossible for anyone to imitate it. That kind of king's breath. Chapter 196, Whitebeard vs. Hawkeye. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Haha, you stand in front of me, you can make your own judgment. Faced with Hawkeye's straightforward question, Whitebeard did not give a direct answer, but instead let Hawkeye judge for himself. Seeing Hawkeye this time, Whitebeard was also a little happy. After all, Hawkeye is not his enemy, but he admires this guy very much. Although Hawkeye's identity is 7 warlords of the sea, strictly speaking it belongs to the Marine government, but Whitebeard never regards Hawkeye as a Marine. Hawkeye hasn't answered yet. Whitebeard glanced at Zoro and said, why did you bring a guy with you this time? Everyone knows that Hawkeye has always had the habit of going out to sea alone, always alone. So Whitebeard was a little strange to see a guy with Chlorla beside Hawkeye. I just taught him swordsmanship. Hawkeye replied calmly. It seems that you have also made some changes. You are a guest from afar. Since you are here, just sit down and talk. Whitebeard wanted to order someone to entertain them, but Hawkeye never liked this kind of politeness. No, I came here with a purpose. Oh, what's the purpose? You have heard the rumors before you go to sea. I was really surprised when I heard the news that you were still alive, so to prove whether the rumors are true or not is worth my personal visit. Whitebeard held up a bowl of wine and drank it, gazing across Hawkeye. We've been talking for a long time, you should be able to judge it. Although this fact is rather unbelievable, your eyes are always as sharp as an eagle, aren't they? You can see the essence that others can't see. You should have your own answer in your heart. Advertisement. This is not necessarily true. There are some things that you can't see through your eyes. You need to. What is needed? Whitebeard asked further. At this time, Hawkeye's eyes also changed suddenly. He took out the black knife behind his back and slashed Whitebeard. I need to use my sword to confirm. When seeing the changes in Hawkeye's movements, Joe's rushed in front of Whitebeard for the first time, his whole body immediately diamondized. The extremely hard body blocked Hawkeye's slash, but his body also felt a little shock. You can't even break my defenses, how can you fight the old man? Joe sneered unceremoniously, but he was a little jealous of Hawkeye in his heart. Although he can block the attack of Hawkeye, even at the top of the war. But this is only because he has the advantage of fruit ability, the diamond fruit is inherently defensive. And to block the Hawkeye's attack, Joe's also had to consume some energy. At least when he really fought, he thought he was not an opponent of Hawkeye, because this slashing of Hawkeye was done effortlessly, and it was not all his strength. But in front of the old man, Joe's is naturally trying his best to protect him. Joe's, you step back first. Since Hawkeye wants to confirm by himself, let's treat it as a way to greet the guests. Whitebeard didn't care, because there were so many people who questioned his identity during this period, and he didn't care about it anymore. Besides, he is also happy to fight Hawkeye once, just to practice his swordsmanship. Everyone thinks that Whitebeard relies on shock fruit to stand at the top of the world, but they all ignore Whitebeard's swordsmanship. Advertisement. A big knife cuts through the clouds, and Whitebeard's knife is also very good. Therefore, in this battle with Hawkeye, Whitebeard plans not to use shock fruit's ability. Just using the broadsword and hockey to fight Hawkeye, and being able to fight the swordsmanship with Hawkeye, who is known as the first master of swordsmanship, Whitebeard is also excited. But since we are going to fight, the place here is a bit small, so let's get to the shore. Whitebeard then ordered a change of direction and quickly stopped at a pier. Whitebeard and Hawkeye went ashore, and the two found a very empty place to face off. And Zoro, Joes and others are watching the battle. The two masters have not yet launched, and the aura that they showed just made Zoro's heart surging. I believe that the person who can block my sword is the real Whitebeard. Hawkeye raised the black knife and said to Whitebeard, "Guhahaha, you can attack with all your strength." Whitebeard laughed aloud, standing on the ground with a big knife in his hand. As soon as Whitebeard's voice fell, Hawkeye rushed over and slashed past, with a fierce breath. It was Hawkeye, but Whitebeard was unaffected, his eyes fixed on the movements in Hawkeye's hands. Although Whitebeard's strength is far superior to Hawkeye, even if the body is hit by Hawkeye's slash, it will not have any effect. But now it's a swordsmanship showdown. If you get a move, doesn't it mean that you have lost to Hawkeye in your moves? Even if this man is the number one swordsman, Whitebeard does not intend to lose to him. However, in the face of his offense, Whitebeard also had to deal with it cautiously. I saw Whitebeard then lean forward with his big knife diagonally, blocking Hawkeye's attack. A surge of sword energy was released from the eagle-eye black knife, and the surrounding air began to vibrate violently. Advertisement. The collision between the two weapons produced a tremendous impact, but neither of them retreated. Then Hawkeye took the initiative to recruit, and then another cross slash. Facing the cross slash, Whitebeard was unwilling to defend passively, and took the initiative to raise the knife and slash it heavily. The broadsword aura came out vertically and horizontally, destroying the eagle eye's cross slash in an instant, and at the same time attacking the eagle eye. A strong sword energy. Hawkeye felt a breath of danger for a moment, thinking that Whitebeard's ability to use sword aura was actually superior to him. However, Hawkeye was agile and quickly avoided the blow. This sword aura directly cut a long crack in the ground guy. I thought Shanks' no Jiao swordsmanship was the only person in the world who was comparable to mine. Now it seems that your swordsmanship is enough to be worthy of your status. Hawkeye's eyes became more solemn. At this time, after seeing Whitebeard's strength, he undoubtedly became more serious. Swordsmanship is no better than others, and the cognition of a person's kendo is extremely important. Whitebeard does not use the fruit ability. Those who can force Hawkeye against swordsmanship do not dare to force it, but can only avoid it, which is enough to surprise Hawkeye. Gum ha ha ha, just show your strength, don't end it at the beginning. Whitebeard reminded once again that he didn't want Hawkeye to fail directly because of carelessness. Hawkeye also took a deep breath when he heard the words. He closed his eyes for 3 seconds and adjusted his state. I understand, there is no temptation next, the real battle begins now. Hawkeye stared at Whitebeard while holding the black knife tightly. 41%. Chapter 197. Shocking Battle. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. A big battle is about to kick off. Zoro, who is about to witness the battle between Whitebeard and Hawkeye, couldn't help but sigh. Facing these two powerhouses in the world, and about to see one of the few battles, Zoro felt that his blood was about to boil. Hawkeye's strength. Zoro also felt his unfathomable and amazing strength when learning from him. He has also heard of the reputation of the pinnacle of Whitebeard 4 emperors, especially recently, the reputation of Whitebeard One Piece has begun to spread. Therefore, for the battle between these two powerhouses, I am very much looking forward to it. You are Hawkeye's apprentice, he is not the opponent of the old man. When Zoro was looking forward to this battle, Joes was suddenly by his side and poured cold water on him. What Joes wants to convey to Zoro is that Hawkeye is not evenly matched with Whitebeard, and the difference between the two is quite big. But Zoro's focus is not here, he immediately retorted. You made a mistake, I am not the apprentice of Hawkeye. Although he has instructed me in swordsmanship, I did not really apprentice, and in the future, I will definitely surpass him and become the world's #1 swordsman. Suo 917 Long's ambitious watch made his dream, the world's #1 swordsman. But Chaozi laughed, the world's #1 swordsman. Will you have such confidence when you watch the old man's battle later? After speaking, the two were not talking, because the battle between Whitebeard and Hawkeye had already begun. Hawkeye holds a black sword in his hand, and the haki of his body covers the sword. The breath of the whole person and the black sword seem to merge into one. Under Whitebeard's gaze, the eagle-eyed figure instantly disappeared in place. He disappeared. Advertisement. Zoro, who had been staring at both of them, suddenly screamed. He had no idea what was going on. But Whitebeard's gaze moved quickly, and then stepped out with his left foot and greeted him with the sword. Soon, there was a burst of great power from Whitebeard's knife, and the eagle-eyed figure appeared in the next moment. This is instant cut. Joes was also slightly surprised and said that he had heard of the strength of Hawkeye, one of which was called Shunjan. It can instantly be close to the enemy and launch a swift blow. This move combined with observation haki can be called a big killer for Hawkeye, and most people will be beheaded before they can fight back. However, the blow was completely blocked by Whitebeard, and Hawkeye couldn't help but sweat on his forehead. His trick was easily blocked by Whitebeard, which surprised him slightly. And Whitebeard was very easy to block the blow, even smiling. Afterwards, Whitebeard shook the eagle's eye back a bit with a push, and at the same time pierced straight with a big knife. Hawkeye's eyes condensed slightly, his hands quickly turned up, and the black knife in his hand turned like a dart. The whole body of the black sword emits a slight light, and the sword energy is constantly emitted from the blade, forming an invisible barrier. Whitebeard's knife was immediately blocked by this invisible barrier. Whitebeard gripped his right hand tightly, and a burst of haki unfolded instantly. A sharp edge shot out from the tip of Whitebeard's sword, immediately revealing a small hole above the barrier. Damn it! Hawkeye cursed inwardly, and immediately moved away. And that barrier quickly appeared a crack extending to the surroundings, and then burst open in an instant. However, even if Hawkeye escaped, Whitebeard's hit was missed. Advertisement. Moreover, Hawkeye launched a counterattack against Whitebeard as soon as he moved away. I saw that the eagle eye gathered the breadth of the whole body, and the pitch-black haki continuously covered the black knife, making it emit a black brilliance. Then Hawkeye waved his hand, and a powerful wind pressure was quickly released and began to sweep around. Go back a bit. Joe's immediately reminded Zoro, and he was instantly diamondized. It's so terrifying. When will I be able to achieve ABFA, this power? Zoro sighed in his heart as he stepped back. The storm formed by Hawkeye's blow can lift the surrounding trees, not to mention that this is not the main sword energy force. The real sword energy is hidden in the air, cutting out like light at a rapid speed, and the path that the sword light travels. The ground is cut into a deep crack, like an abyss. And all of this was done in an instant. Even Whitebeard had no time to think, he subconsciously blocked the big knife in front of him. Boom. The huge impact force hits the broad knife, and Whitebeard armament haki instantly covers it, and it does not leave room for coverage. Whitebeard felt a steady flow of force from his sword. As far as swords are concerned, Yingyan is worthy of being the #1 swordsman in the world, and even Whitebeard feels the pressure. Although Whitebeard can easily use the shocking power to resolve it at this time, he doesn't want to admit defeat. How could it be over so easily? I saw that Whitebeard quickly turned the sword out of the sword, which counteracted the impact on the opposite side. Whitebeard's sword aura became more and more fierce, and finally bounced Hawkeye's attack to other places. Advertisement. And the place where the bombardment hit, also formed a big deep pit. It's me. Without giving Hawkeye a chance to breathe, Whitebeard immediately rushed up and slashed. Like the cut stars on Jetsu, he walked away with enough power to split the air. Hawkeye also greeted him with all his strength, and the two of them faced each other with the greatest strength. When Hawkeye's black knife collided with Whitebeard's broad knife, the surrounding space vibrated violently. A more terrifying storm began to sweep the ground, and then slowly rose into the air. Like a tornado, the dust on the ground is raised to a height of several tens of meters, as if to cover the sun. Zoro and others have been completely obscured, and the location of the battle center has been invisible. And this power is still expanding. Zoro feels that his heart has been completely shocked. This battle of swordsmanship made Zoro feel enthusiastic. This terrifying battle scene was the first time Zoro saw it, and it was even more terrifying than he had imagined before. Is this the real powerhouse, the battle between the world's #1 swordsman and One Piece? This level of battle Zoro probably won't be able to see it for the second time in his life, he has already kept it firmly in his heart. Compared with this kind of scenes, my previous battles were all petty fights. The 3000 worlds and the 3-sword style were almost trivial. I'm still far behind. Zoro couldn't help clenching his fists. A part of the power of Whitebeard and Hawkeye was ejected from the center due to the impact, and it dashed straight to the sky, as if it had cut the sky apart. Chapter 198. Defeated Hawkeye. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. The dazzling silver light drew a long trace on the sky, like a galaxy, which was shocking. It was the first time Zoro saw this rare scene, and even Joes was shocked by this kind of battle. Both Hawkeye and Whitebeard are under tremendous pressure in the center, but Hawkeye is compared with Whitebeard. He is completely at a disadvantage because of the strength of the eagle eye to fight it but the strength of Whitebeard. Although the sword energy of both sides has been released to the maximum, Hawkeye is slightly worse. As the surrounding fluctuations became stronger and stronger, so did Hawkeye's hand holding the black knife began to tremble. Hawkeye knew that his defeat was set, so he had to slowly withdraw his strength. At that moment, Whitebeard also withdrew his broad sword, and both sides gave up tacitly. However, because it was difficult to retract easily under such conditions, Hawkeye was still shaken by Whitebeard's power. After Hawkeye withdrew his power, that sword aura immediately cut on Hawkeye's body, piercing his black windbreaker. At the same time, a blood stain was left on his body, but this was just a small injury to Hawkeye. On the contrary, if he continued to fight just now, his power would definitely be uncontrollable in the end. The result is very likely that he will be seriously injured or even dead. How? Are you okay? Whitebeard asked concerned after seeing Hawkeye's injury. I lost. My sword recognizes you. you deserve to be the One Piece. Hawkeye said calmly, not caring about his wounds. Advertisement. Gum ha ha ha. Whitebeard laughed immediately. In this case, let's go back to the boat and have a rest. Because Hawkeye had some injuries, Whitebeard asked him to go up and heal. Daddy is mighty, Daddy is invincible in the world. When they returned, the crew of Whitebeard cheered at Whitebeard. They all witnessed this battle, and they all saw the wonderful battle between Whitebeard and Hawkeye. Although the defeat of Kizaru and Garp last time, it far exceeded the effect of defeating Hawkeye. But this time they saw a top-notch swordsmanship duel, and Eagle Eye was known as the world's #1 swordsman. And now, Whitebeard does not use other fruit abilities, and simply uses swordsmanship to defeat Hawkeye. This makes Whitebeard's crew feel very proud. They think Whitebeard is the god in their hearts. Okay, everyone, be quiet and go work on your own. Whitebeard gestured, he wanted to communicate with Hawkeye, and everyone else would do their own thing. I think if Redhead knows your current strength, I'm afraid he will be looking forward to fighting with you. Hawkeye looked at Whitebeard and said. Although he failed to fight Whitebeard, the Redhead's strength is above him, and he may be able to fight Whitebeard. Whitebeard smiled unceasingly, but he didn't think Red Hair was his opponent. His current strength is no longer afraid of any 4 Emperor's admiral. In the following time, Whitebeard and Hawkeye said something more. But because Hawkeye is not a talkative person, not to mention that he has only just lost one battle now, so he is not in the mood. Advertisement. It didn't take long for Hawkeye to bid farewell to Whitebeard, and Whitebeard was refused to send him off. Soon, Hawkeye took Zoro and disappeared into their sight in a small boat. After so many years, I finally met a real opponent. It seems that I need more practice. While sailing on the sea, Hawkeye kept thinking about the battle just now, and couldn't help clenching his fists. In the past, he had always regarded Red Hair as his opponent, but that was only for swordsmanship, and he and Red Hair could be said to be evenly matched. Every fight with Red Hair is a kind of fun for him. But now in the battle with Whitebeard, he was completely suppressed by Whitebeard in terms of swordsmanship. This made Hawkeye a serious sense of frustration, and he can accept that his strength is not the best in the world. But he couldn't accept that other people overpowered himself so much in swordsmanship. This is really hard for him to accept, after all, he has paid too much in swordsmanship. Yeah, I didn't expect that Whitebeard was so powerful. Was Roger the same as him back then? After this time, Zoro also developed a deep admiration for Whitebeard. Roger. The legendary One Piece, I think in terms of strength, Whitebeard has surpassed Roger. Because Roger was eventually caught by Garp, but with Whitebeard's current strength, I can't think of anyone in Marine who can do this. Zero seeking flowers, Zero. Hawkeye analyzed it very seriously, although he hadn't seen Roger's true strength. But Roger was also there when he was executed. At that time, the 17-year-old Hawkeye had a deep memory of this scene. However, Roger's splendor was eventually intercepted by the Marine government, but Whitebeard was already very difficult to deal with. Advertisement. There are so many dangers in New World. The strong are everywhere. I'm still too small. After I go back this time, I have to work harder. Otherwise, I won't be able to help Luffy anymore in the future. Zoro also said as if he swears, in order to become stronger, he is willing to eat any hardship now. Well, a swordsman will never retreat. Even if he fails, he can't give up easily. One day he will regain his own honor. Hawkeye had already made up his mind in his heart. After he returned, he would immediately use his influence to send a message. He wanted to give up his name as the world's #1 swordsman, although Whitebeard didn't mean to grab his name. But he felt that he had already lost. This is the case. He can no longer afford the title. However, he will also practice assiduously, striving to get his swordsmanship to the next level, and hide this title back in the future. On Whitebeard's side, after Hawkeye and others left, the crew of Whitebeard discussed the battle again, and they all touted Whitebeard. As expected of my daddy, his strength is already so strong, and now even swordsmanship is the first time that he has overpowered the world as a swordsman, Eagle Eye. Yeah, I think we have to think of a name for the old man. Since Eagle Eye is the world's #1 swordsman, our old man defeated him, so there is a name that can't be overstated. That's right, I think it's the only great swordsman in the world. Idiot, there is no such name. For a while, everyone was talking about it, as if they were fighting for their own honor. But Whitebeard on the side didn't care much, just let them discuss it by themselves. By the way, Joes, you should also leave these few days. We should recruit more people. Whitebeard has already begun brewing his own plan, and a huge pirate group cannot rely on himself to support it. End. Chapter 199. Expand the Whitebeard pirate group. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Daddy, are we going to start expanding the team? Joes asked with some questions, because the former Whitebeard was relatively indifferent to such things. Basically, Most of the members came over by themselves, or were accepted as sons when they came to challenge Whitebeard. In the past, Whitebeard rarely said that he would take the initiative to recruit members and expand his influence, but even so, the Whitebeard influence at that time was really strong. Although now that the name of Whitebeard One Piece spreads, there will definitely be many people who want to take refuge, but the forces that come to take refuge in this period will definitely be mixed. Yes, I've said it before. Have you ever used the opportunity to bully me? The pirates will pay the price sooner or later, and we will get back what we lost. But we are a whole. These things cannot allow me to do, September 17th, alone, and you cannot rely on me forever. If we say that we will develop with other pirate groups in the future, such as one of the four emperors, or even multiple four emperors will unite against us. In time, I am strong, and I can't care about all of you. At that time, it will depend on your abilities. Whitebeard's remarks also made Joe suddenly open up, wondering why Whitebeard recently dispersed the other captains, but he did not act. It turned out that Whitebeard had considered it a long time ago. Now their situation is more sensitive. Once they act, they may cause hostility from many forces. That's why Whitebeard stood still, and then asked the other captains to consolidate their own power. Then now he asked Joes to recruit troops and expand his power in order to deal with the disadvantages that may arise later. It turned out to be like this: Daddy, can those four emperors really unite against us? Although Joes understood Whitebeard's foresight. Advertisement. But Joes still had some doubts about the fact that these arrogant four emperors would unite. After all, what is the existence of four emperors? That is the emperor of the sea, the overlord of the sea. The strong all have their own dignity. Once united, doesn't it mean admitting their own failures and deficiencies? I think that at the beginning, Garp joined Roger to destroy Rock's pirate, although Roger's identity is the reason for the pirate. But more, because Garp felt that he united other people to deal with Rocks, which has proved that he alone is not an enemy of Rocks. Later, Garp refused to be promoted to admiral. For this reason, he was obviously inferior to Rocks, but Marine used this to spread the word that he defeated Rocks alone. This is by no means an honor to Garp, but a deep shame. Until now, Garp has been affected by this incident. This is the case with Garp, and the same is true for four emperors. So Joes would be very strange, but Whitebeard smiled and replied, of course, when they see a level far beyond their own, they will do whatever they can. The four emperors still have their own arrogance, isn't it, because they are still four emperors, but when their four emperors' identities are not top-notch. When there was a One Piece above them, what was arrogance to them at that time? Whitebeard, who has experienced this past life, has a deep understanding. Before he was resurrected, the four emperors even joined forces with Marine to deal with him. Joes nodded. Then Daddy, what should I do? Since the news of your resurrection spread, some pirate groups have already wanted to take refuge in us. But you basically refused. How can I expand my power now? Who should I look for? Advertisement. Joes didn't quite understand this. The Whitebeard who had taken refuge in the past rejected them all, and instead left the Arrow who wanted to assassinate him. This is a bit puzzling. If you are not familiar with and respect your father, Joes might think this person is a trembling M. Joes, you, as the 3rd Division captain of our pirate group, are excellent, but you should also learn some strategies. Whitebeard laughed jokingly, which surprised Joes, and asked quickly, Father, what do you mean? I don't quite understand. Guhahaha. I mean, it's hard to tell if they are sincere, but most of them have their own goals. What our pirates needs are truly loyal and honest partners, not those with impure goals. The kind of valuable partners are always found by themselves, rather than waiting for others to take refuge. Most of the people who come to take refuge are zero with little value. Whitebeard smiled and analyzed his thoughts. Although Joes was a little at a loss, he still pretended to understand thoroughly. Oh, that's it, Father, I understand, but where can I find a valuable partner? Joes asked again immediately, but Whitebeard didn't answer him directly. Of course you need to discover this by yourself, but I have a very important candidate who needs to contact you. Whitebeard behaved very mysteriously, did not directly say the name to Joes, but let him go to Sky Island. After you go to Sky Island, follow the method to contact the person, and then pass the message to him. No matter what the result is, you can return. Of course, if you meet any talent on the way, you can bring it back. Advertisement. After listening to Joes, he also firmly remembered the method and message Whitebeard said to him, and immediately set off with a team of crew members. Seeing Jaws's departure, Whitebeard too on the side was finally unhappy and started to make trouble. Father, why did they leave one by one? I can only stay here, I want to go out to play and fight. Whitebeard too looks like a baby, but his expression is like a bully. Whitebeard smiled immediately and lifted the knife up and shook it down. Okay, I'll fight with you to see if you have made 5.0 steps during this period. When Whitebeard said this, Whitebeard too flinched. No way, Daddy, if I don't fight you, you will bully people. Before the battle between Whitebeard and Hawkeye, Whitebeard too also watched it completely. Moreover, after being beaten last time, coupled with the current performance of Whitebeard, Whitebeard too has long been compliant with Whitebeard. Gu ha ha ha, since you don't fight with me, then don't say you want to fight anymore. During this time, you should be honest. You will have opportunities to fight in the future. Whitebeard laughed and said, in fact, he wanted to deliberately suppress Whitebeard II's desire to fight, if there is a big battle in the future. Then he must be a tiger out of the cage, definitely a big killer. Chapter 200. Redhead Mind. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. In the blue sky, countless seabirds took newspapers to fly in different directions, and then they scattered these laughter all over the world. Super big news, the world's #1 swordsman, Hawkeye and Whitebeard battled, the pure swordsmanship duel failed. Hawkeye automatically gave up the title of the world's #1 swordsman, and this title was taken by Whitebeard. When these messages were delivered, the whole world boiled for a while. Hawkeye and Whitebeard, the two here are world celebrities, and they are all top masters. And during this time, the reputation of Whitebeard One Piece was hot. In addition, the reputation of Hawkeye's #1 swordsman has already taken root in everyone's hearts. And when this person was in a battle, the title of Hawkeye was actually taken by Whitebeard, which shows how much shock it will cause. All over New World are talking about this, and it has become people's after-dinner talk. The news was quickly learned by Red Hair Pirates, who had already planned to visit Whitebeard before. But there has been no suitable opportunity, because he has many things to arrange. 1, and considering that he will meet Whitebeard during this period, it may cause other 4 emperors to be vigilant. Therefore, Red Hair has been delaying the matter, and now, after he heard of the battle between Hawkeye and Whitebeard, he suddenly became very interested. I didn't expect Whitebeard to defeat Hawkeye with swordsmanship. This is really big news. Advertisement. Standing on the bow of the boat, the red hair said with a sigh, and he couldn't help but recall the scene when he was fighting with Hawkeye in his mind. At that time, the two of them also fought heartily, but it was irrelevant. Therefore, in those years, Hawkeye liked to fight with Red Hair. But later, in order to protect Luffy, Redhead lost an arm, and Hawkeye has never looked for him since. Because Hawkeye felt that even if he had won, he would still be a little incapable of victory, and the battle would be unhappy. The crew gathered behind Red Hair, and what they heard most these days was Red Hair's sigh for Whitebeard. The most important thing is that the title of the world's #1 swordsman was given by Hawkeye on his own initiative. It can be seen that Hawkeye has withstood his failure. Ben Beckman couldn't help but praised Hawkeye, and the red hair nodded. Of course, Hawkeye is a very arrogant guy. He has lost to Whitebeard. How could he continue to occupy this name? But I didn't expect Whitebeard to be so strong. During this period, news of him defeating Kizaru, Garp, and Hawkeye continued. It makes me feel that he is back to his original peak state, which is a bit weird. Ben Beckman was a little puzzled. This point is actually very strange for the red hair, it is still impossible to draw any conclusions. His resurrection is already very strange, and now the power is far greater than before. Did he be resurrected by some fruit power? Ben Beckman said suspiciously. Although he hasn't seen it, it doesn't mean that the kind of fruit doesn't exist. Even if it is the Devil Fruit illustrated book, no one can guarantee that there is nothing missing. Redhead also thinks this inference has a slight possibility. Advertisement. As far as I know, there is a kind of fruit that can give people an immortal life, and maybe they can also be resurrected. Red Hair speculated. Are you talking about op fruit? Ben Beckman thought for a while before remembering. Op fruit is a kind of superpower system fruit. Op fruit ability person can create a global or hemisphere space, can cut off, exchange, splicing anything in the space at will, even can exchange two minds. Moreover, the most important thing is that if the op fruit ability person has enough talent, the ultimate ability of op fruit can be developed. It is to give an immortal life to a human being, and perhaps it can also bring people back to life. However, the current owner of op fruit is Trafalgar Luo, one of the supernovae. With his current strength, it should not be enough to reach this level. The red hair continued to analyze, and Ben Beckman also nodded. Indeed, if Trafalgar Ro is really capable of resurrecting Whitebeard, then it will cost his life to use this ultimate ability. And he doesn't seem to be dead, so it should be possible to rule out this speculation. Since the speculation was inconclusive, Red Hair didn't think about it anymore. He asked the crew to report some recent movements of other 4 emperors. Redhead learned that there seemed to be some movement in the Ants' side, as if he had begun to gather people to launch an offensive. But looking at the trend, I still don't know where it is. It's just that the 4 emperors shot, it shouldn't be a small place. Knowing this information, Hongfa also intends to take a look. If it is not a particularly important incident, he will not rashly intervene. Auntie, you are paying more attention. Beckman, I will leave for Whitebeard's territory tomorrow, and everything after that is left to you. Advertisement. The red hair confessed to Ben Beckman. Ben Beckman nodded. He also knows the mind of red hair very well. Even Hawkeye took the initiative to fight Whitebeard. Redhead could sit still. Of course he wanted to fight Whitebeard right away. Only by experiencing it personally and fighting Whitebeard in person can we know how far Whitebeard is now. It may be that 917's pure desire to fight is driving the red hair, but there is another point that he has been a little apologetic to Whitebeard. At the time of the war, I originally wanted to prevent Whitebeard from fighting with Marine, but unfortunately, I still failed to save Whitebeard. Therefore, when he learned that Whitebeard was still alive, the red hair felt a little relieved and happy. However, Ben Beckman also fell into thinking when he heard that Redhead wanted to go to Whitebeard's territory alone. Ben Beckman feels that it is not appropriate to let the Redhead go alone. After all, the situation in New World is already very turbulent now. Letting the Redhead go alone may be dangerous. Although the possibility is relatively small, it cannot be allowed to appear. Since they will pay attention to other four emperors will definitely pay attention to them. The news that the Redhead went to the Whitebeard pirate group will probably be known in advance by them, and then there will be a battle. Many four emperors may be swept to participate, so, for the sake of safety, Ben Beckman felt that they should at least go with them. Captain, since we are going, it should be a formal meeting. Let us go with you. It's safer. Redhead can tell that Ben Beckman also wants to meet Whitebeard, and the other crew members should be the same, so Redhead agreed. Chapter 201. Red Hair is coming. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Red Hair pirates sailed mightily on the sea, heading to the territory of Whitebeard. During this period, Joes gradually went to the location of Sky Island, but because of the long distance, it also took a long time. Joes kept thinking about who the man Whitebeard asked him to find on Sky Island was on the road. Whitebeard didn't need to say a name, but Joes faintly felt that this person was very extraordinary. This can be obtained by the method Whitebeard told him. Because Whitebeard told him that he couldn't see that person even when he went there, he needed a special way to contact him. While sailing, Joes suddenly encountered a team of people. Captain, there is a pirate group ahead. The observer told him for the first time. Joes looked around, and saw two high flags erected on the pirate group that appeared in front of him. That's two pirate groups. Joes quickly discovered that it was composed of two pirate groups, and the two figures in the front made him feel very familiar. As the distance gets closer and closer, Joes quickly sees clearly. It turns out that it is the two supernovas Kid and Kira. I saw Kid looking at Joes with a haughty face. He embraced his hands and shouted to Joes, Captain Joes, let's talk. The crew on Jaws' side showed their vigilance one after another. Joes was also a little strange. These people seemed to have known their tracks a long time ago. It seemed to have been waiting here long ago, but he didn't understand what these people were going to do. Advertisement. Captain, are they going to attack us? All of them showed a fighting look. However, Joes waved his hand, motioning them to stop first, at least to figure out what the other party was going to do. If the two are really hostile, it will not be too late to fight. And Joes doesn't think that these two people can beat him together. Although they are two supernovas, he has long been famous and strong. Don't make the hostility too obvious, move the ship over, I want to see what their purpose is. This is also why Whitebeard sent Joes to contact the man specially, because he is usually more cautious. Okay, Captain. The crew quickly approached the ship according to Jaws' intention. Captain Joes, I didn't expect to meet you here. If you don't mind, let's talk to our captain. We have a very important thing. After the boats of the two sides met, Kira first invited Joes in a very friendly manner. Kid is also a little arrogant, but generally he is still friendly. Although I was still very strange, I didn't quite understand what important things they would have to discuss. But Joes had nothing to fear, so he boarded their boat alone. You probably didn't meet me here suddenly, but waited here deliberately. It seems that your news is quite well informed. After Kid greeted him for a few drinks, Joes began to speak. Kid and Kira looked at each other, and they both laughed embarrassedly. Hey, this is just a coincidence. Recently, the Whitebeard pirate group has become famous. The name of One Piece has spread all over the world and shakes the mainland. We can't help but pay more attention. Advertisement. Our men on the road learned that you left the Whitebeard pirates and didn't know where to go, so we waited here according to your sailing route. Joes was very calm. Kira was also very honest, and directly stated their actions. This point made Joes a little admired. He then asked, then what are you doing here specifically for me, what are the important things? At this point, Kid and Kira both paused, then hesitated for a long time. Joes felt even more weird. According to the truth, these two newcomer pirates, and their Whitebeard pirates, can't beat them. Although these are two supernovae, this is New World. The most indispensable thing in New World is super confidence. There are not many strong people. Therefore, these two people can only be regarded as the rookie pirate group, and their power is quite different from that of the Whitebeard pirate group. Even if the two captains add up, it is not worth the weight of a captain of Joe's. Therefore, the two of them are not very equal. The reason why they are willing to listen to what they say is because Joe's does not want to make enemies. Even the rookie pirate group, making enemies easily is also very irrational, because in a sense it is very disadvantaged. So Joe certainly wouldn't do such a stupid thing, but he wanted to figure out the purpose of these two people as soon as possible. After all, Joe still has his own business and can't delay too much time. The journey was already relatively long, and the situation is now very tense. Of course, he wanted to complete the task as soon as possible and then return to Whitebeard. Seeing that they were silent, Joe's had to continue to ask, "If you have something to say directly, or I will leave immediately." Joe's didn't want to spend time with them all the time. After he said that, the two of them got straight to the point. Advertisement. Captain Joe's, it's like this. We admired Whitebeard a long time ago, before the whole world thought that Whitebeard was dead. But in fact he is still alive, and what he has done recently has shaken the world, and he is even more known as the One Piece. Kira first showed a deep admiration for Whitebeard, and these words have always been Kira's remarks. Although Kid is the boss of this group league, his personality is very arrogant and conceited, so he can't say such a thing. So Kira could only communicate with Joe's. After hearing what Kira said, Joe's also nodded. Well, now the whole world is shocked by Dad's affairs, enemies and friends are all over New World, so what do you mean? Joe's asked Nord Zhao again, because Kira said for a long time and still did not say their purpose and ideas. Kira and Kid glanced at each other. At this time, Kid said to Joe's, "That's it, we want to join the Whitebeard pirates." Jaws' expression suddenly became intriguing, because originally the old man asked him to come out and expand his influence. His purpose was to recruit troops and buy horses, but he didn't expect someone to take the initiative to take refuge at this time. It's just that according to the old man, those who take refuge generally have to look down on 3 points. Thinking of this, Joe's didn't immediately answer Kid's words. We can be only a small team leader, as long as we can follow the Whitebeard pirates. Yes, although we are inadequate compared to many captains under the name of the Whitebeard Kid's forehead, we still have a lot of potential. Seeing that Joe's was silent, the two added, "Guy, we are satisfied." Chapter 202. The Refuge of a Supernova. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Joe's took a serious look at Kid and Kira, their expressions were both serious. "You guys, do you really want to join Dad's pirate group?" Joe's thought they should be telling the truth, but he asked again. Although these two people came to take refuge on their own, but as they said, the potential of the two of them still has some, at least Kid now has hundreds of millions of bounties. At the time, Kid was still the leader of their batch of supernovae, and it could be said that he was in full swing. There are indeed great opportunities for growth in the future strength, so Joe's also intends to recruit them, but the premise is to fully ensure that they are safe. So many questions must be understood by Joe's, and Kid immediately answered yes. Joe's continued. You have to know that joining Dad's pirates is not a trifling matter. After joining, everyone gets along like brothers. Because we are all the sons of Daddy Whitebeard, everyone will call Whitebeard Daddy. And what we hate the most is the traitor, especially after the war. You should know that Blackbeard escaped from the old man's dress. Different from other pirate groups, the Whitebeard pirate group is a bit special. The other captains are either just captains or called brothers with the 917 crew. The Whitebeard Children's Pirate Group is the relationship between the father and the sons, but there is also a child pirate group that is somewhat similar. That is the Ants Pirate Group. In the Ants Pirate Group, the relationship between the crew and the captain is the relationship between mother and children. Advertisement. And the Ants crew members are different from the situation on Whitebeard's side. Most of the Ants crew members are her biological children and are related by blood. The pirate group is really the same as the family. After hearing what Joe said, Kid also nodded. I've heard about this a little bit. I heard that Blackbeard was a crew member of the Whitebeard ship, and later captured Dark Fruit, and even shot Whitebeard during the war. In Impel Down, Blackbeard also recruited a lot of team members to form the Blackbeard Pirate Group, which has grown to the current 4 emperors. Kid also has some understanding of these things. After all, New World attaches great importance to such things as intelligence. Moreover, the whole world was shaking at the top of the war, and almost no one didn't know Blackbeard. Hearing the word 4 emperors, Joe's couldn't help but disdain. ABFA, huh, what 4 emperors, Dad just hasn't freed his hands yet, he won't be able to jump for a few days. Hearing this, Kid and Kira looked at each other, and both of them were a little shocked, as if they had heard a very explosive message. But this is indeed very explosive. The news that Bai Jingzhou showed is that he is about to attack Blackbeard. The 2 4 emperors pirate groups launched a war. This is definitely the great news of New World. So, is Whitebeard about to attack Blackbeard? Kid asked in surprise. At this time Joe's realized that he seemed to be talking about it soon, and that this information should not be leaked out. It wouldn't be good if the two people leaked it out and passed it to Blackbeard. But he thought about it again. Even if Blackbeard knew in advance, what could he do? Facing Whitebeard's offense, he definitely had no chance of confrontation. After seeing the power of the old man, Joes is convinced of this. No matter how much Blackbeard prepares, he can't fight Whitebeard. I'm afraid the only thing Blackbeard can do is to run away, but that's just a delay. The final outcome has been decided by the old man. Advertisement. That is, death. You have not yet joined the Whitebeard pirates. This matter has nothing to do with you for the time being, Joes said lightly. Since Whitebeard has this plan, isn't that great? It just so happens that you also need manpower. Moreover, after joining the Whitebeard pirates, we will do our best and will definitely be loyal to Whitebeard. Kid expressed his determination very seriously. Well, can you accept that your team will be reassigned after joining the Whitebeard pirates? Joes asked another very important question. The general pirate group will not plan to join the group with their own team, because their team will always cooperate the most tacitly. However, the Whitebeard pirates does not need ordinary crew members, but captain-level talents. So once they join, Whitebeard will not lead their pirate group alone. However, this condition is more difficult for captains to accept, so Whitebeard initially gave Joes the dead end as to recruit those lone pirates as much as possible. Because recruiting lone pirates will be very good, there is no trouble. Originally, Joes felt that they would not accept this condition easily, at least because of it all at once. But what Joes did not expect was that Kid agreed without even thinking about it. Of course, I accept this. This made Joes a little puzzled. How could the captain abandon his crew so easily? Advertisement. Well, if you really want to join, I can recommend you. In the end, whether you can join or not depends on your father's decision. Joes didn't continue to ask, just let the old man test them at that time. Well, when shall we meet Whitebeard? Kid asked with some delight. This will take some time, because I have my own mission when I leave my father, and I need to go back after completing the mission. Joes said. Then what task do you have? Can we help together? Kid asked immediately. Jaws's eyes swept over Kid and Kira, and said, do you want to be with me? This is no longer necessary. Captain Joes, we won't drag you back, just let us follow. Kid insisted on following Joes to complete the task. However, Joes was very firm in expressing his attitude. This is not okay. Don't continue talking. I'll take you to see Dad when I come back. After speaking, Joes was ready to leave, but Kid and Kira ordered the helmsman to follow Jaws's pirate ship after he left. Captain, they are still following. The subordinate immediately told Joes. Seeing this, Joes also lost his patience a bit, saw his figure turned into a diamond, and then jumped onto Kid's boat. You have made me lose my patience. Do you want me to beat you up so that you will be obedient? Joes said coldly. Captain Joes, we have no malice, but we are honored to be able to play against Captain Joes. Facing Jaws's battle challenge, Kid showed excitement instead. Chapter 203. The name of Whitebeard's One Piece. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Kid showed a very excited desire to fight, and he immediately used the fruit ability. He sucked all the metal products from the ship onto his arm, forming a huge metal arm. Kira didn't expect to see Kid really going to fight Joes, and he was immediately surprised. Are you crazy? We are asking for him, and we are not his opponents. Kira tried to stop Kid, but Kid couldn't listen. What are you talking about? I just want to fight him, it won't affect anything. As the leader of Supernova, Kid has always been very arrogant in his heart. Even if he is facing a much stronger opponent, he wants to fight with him. Captain Joes, come on, let me see your strength. Kid opened his arms and surrounded Joes with countless medals. Joes glanced at him contemptuously, and then naturally covered his body with a layer of diamonds. Then, come on. So Joes and Kid fought one-on-one, and after a while, Kid lay on the deck. Joes recovered the power of the fruit unscathed, and then looked at Kid condescendingly. Advertisement. I appreciate your fearlessness more than your strength. After speaking, Joes shook Kira again. If you continue to follow, I will be welcome. It seems I'm still far away. After Joes left, Kid couldn't help but laugh at himself. It doesn't matter. Let's keep a low profile for a while. Kira immediately comforted him. After Joes sailed again, Kid and the others did not follow. And Joes was getting closer and closer to Sky Island, and some other pirate groups were foreseen in the middle. But because Jaws's banner was Whitebeard's logo, the pirates did not even dare to approach. Now Whitebeard's reputation is so hot that ordinary pirate groups dare not provoke them at all. On the other hand, Marco noticed the ant's actions. He noticed that the ant had sent a large team of people. But he didn't know what those people were going to do, but Marco came to report to Whitebeard as soon as possible. You said that the Charlotte Linlin Pirates has a lot of movement, and the action seems to be secret. Whitebeard asked after hearing Marco's report. Yes, They should be going to attack somewhere, as if they have made a lot of preparations. Marco faintly felt a little bad. However, those people like the ant are still in the action stage, and it is not clear where they are going to be attacked. It's just that Marco felt very bad. After all, it was of the Four Emperors level, and its direction of entry was very similar to the Fishman Island. Tell me what you think. Whitebeard seemed to know what Marco was thinking, so he asked him to say it. Father, I think they may want to attack the Fishman Island, but the possibility is relatively small. Now that the name of the father has shaken the world, I think they dare not fight against the father here. Advertisement. Marco said that he denied his conjecture. Because this idea is indeed a bit crazy, everyone knows that Whitebeard is not to be offended at this time, even if the Four Emperors really have the idea of dealing with Whitebeard, at least it must be well planned. And their current actions, although secretive, are not very comprehensive, which is very incomprehensible. Gum ha ha ha. However, Whitebeard burst into laughter after hearing Marco's words. Father, what are you laughing at? Marco was puzzled. Marco, you should trust your instincts. Marco was shocked when he heard the words, and immediately asked with his eyes wide open. Father, you mean, are they really trying to attack the Fishman Island? I don't know, but since you think it is possible, then we have to take precautions. It's always better to be prepared, but Charlotte Linlin and I were in the same boat back then. I know the character of that guy very well. She is someone who is likely to do this kind of thing, and it is very likely that she will not unite with other Four Emperors, at least not for now. Whitebeard then asked Marco to arrange the matter. After all, the Fishman Island is relatively far from here, and it is impossible for them to send the main force over. And it is not clear whether Charlotte Linlin is going to attack the Fishman Island, so under the instruction of Whitebeard, Marco sent some people to the Fishman Island to garrison for observation. Marco, has there been any changes in our pirate group recently? Whitebeard asked carelessly. Zero. Look for flowers. Usually these things are handled by Marco. Before the war, there were 43 pirate groups under Whitebeard. Afterwards, they slowly destroyed or scattered and withdrew, until Whitebeard was resurrected, the number began to gradually recover. And until now, this number has surpassed before. Advertisement. Back to Dad, your One Piece name has spread throughout the New World, and now more and more pirate groups want to join. However, according to your wishes, we have greatly restricted the participation of personnel. There are now a total of 50 pirate groups under our control. Marco said it proudly. He felt that as the captain of the main group of the Whitebeard pirates, he had a lot of face. After all, these 50 pirate groups are all famous figures in New World, and they are absolutely loyal to Whitebeard. So many, it's really surprising. Despite that, Whitebeard did not show a clear smile. Yes, after our main group has been replenished, there are now 18 captains. Maybe the other 4 emperors should be under pressure. Marco said with a smile. At this time Whitebeard also sighed slightly, because he felt that although his strength was strong, it also seemed to have caused a shortcoming. That is because his strength is too strong, many crew members and even some captains feel very comfortable. So that they will slacken off, which makes Whitebeard very worried. As an excellent captain, he not only serves as a barrier for all crew members, but also allows these captains to be on their own. Father, what's the matter with you? Seeing Whitebeard's behavior a little serious, Marco stopped smiling and asked. Marco, have your brothers been a little too comfortable lately? I reminded you once before, but now some of you still haven't adjusted your mindset. Whitebeard's tone was rather severe, and Marco suddenly became serious. I'm sorry, Father, I have told them several times, but now there are too many praises about Father in the world, and they all seem to be immersed in it. Marco immediately replied with an apologetic face. As a team leader, he did not manage the team well. End. Chapter 204. Whitebeard's personal guidance. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. I don't blame you for this, but you still have to convey what I mean to them. I can't lose my sense of crisis because of my personal strength, so that sooner or later I will suffer. Whitebeard spoke to Marco patiently, and Marco continued to nod while listening. Indeed, Whitebeard is very considerate of the crew. His sternness can help the captains grow. If you always rely on me and ignore your own growth, then you may not be able to keep up with my team in the future, then I may let someone replace your captain. Speaking of this, Whitebeard's meaning is already obvious, that is, if the captain is not aware of the crisis and keeps paddling, then he will be dismissed as the captain. Hearing this, Marco also nodded. I see, Daddy, I will tell him. September 17th. The Whitebeard too next to him had been listening to their conversation and couldn't help saying, Father, let me practice with them, so that they can improve their fighting ability. Marco, how about it, do you want to practice with him? Whitebeard joked as he looked at Marco. Although most of the captains did not have the power to fight Whitebeard 2, Marco can fight with him, although he is not an opponent of Whitebeard 2. However, as Whitebeard's capable fighter, Marco intends to give priority to improving Marco's level of strength. In addition to Marco, Joe's and Beast are some strengths, and they can barely be regarded as Shichibukai's level. Whitebeard too has been with Whitebeard for a while, so Marco is also somewhat clear about his strength. I saw Mako looked confidently and sharply at Whitebeard too with a silly smile, although the guy in front of him seemed a bit stupid. But the strength is really amazing, but in order to temper himself, Marco is of course not afraid. No problem, but I have to find a spacious place. Marco agreed immediately, but he felt that the space on the boat was a bit cramped. Advertisement. And it was difficult for them to fight at this level without causing damage, so Marco still wanted to fight on the shore. Whitebeard laughed and said calmly, "Just here, you both try your best, don't worry about causing damage or anything." Whitebeard had said so, and Marco wouldn't continue to insist, but he was still a little strange in his heart. Although I know that Whitebeard's shocking power can be used as a barrier, and Whitebeard is also very skilled. But to block every force in a battle without causing damage to the hull, how precise control is needed. Although Marco knows that Whitebeard is powerful, it is still unbelievable if he can achieve this level. Afterwards, Marco stood in opposition to Whitebeard too, and the other crew also avoided some distance to watch the battle. "Come on, Captain Marco. Be sure to fight for us. It's okay, use the power of Phoenix to kill him." The crew roared, and before the battle started, Whitebeard too was a little bit aggrieved. "Father, they don't support me. I'm so angry." Whitebeard sat on the deck leisurely, smiling and replied, "You will support you if you win." As soon as he said this, Whitebeard too immediately became full of confidence, and his hands were already gearing up. "Okay, see if I don't let you see my power." Whitebeard too is like a little pissed kid, full of revenge at this moment. Although Whitebeard too is already a companion of their Whitebeard pirates, but because he always behaves very domineering. Advertisement. And because he is a bit stupid, he is not very popular, not to mention that he has attacked Skyard and others before. Therefore, there are still many people in the Whitebeard pirates who have not fully accepted him in their hearts, but the most important thing is. At this time, you are fighting with Whitebeard too. It is Marco. As a captain, Marco is Whitebeard's confidant. They naturally chose to support Marco, which is normal. As soon as the battle began, Marco became a phoenix. The air battle is precisely Whitebeard's shortcoming, he has no way to attack Marco. Therefore, Whitebeard too was immediately unhappy. "Father, he flies so high, I can't beat him." "You can't hit him. He won't be able to hit you, why are you in a hurry?" Whitebeard replied faintly. Whitebeard too thinks so too. If Marco has been in the sky, neither side will win. But Marco was obviously not flying to the sky to avoid fighting, on the contrary, he continued to consume. I saw Marco flew to the highest altitude he could reach, and then swooped down facing Whitebeard too. Using his potential energy, Marco is ready to launch a powerful attack on Whitebeard too. There was no temptation at all, came up almost to go all out, because Marco knew the power of Whitebeard too. This guy is not so powerful. Look, a captain made a powerful blow. I don't know if he can defeat Whitebeard too. Although I don't know the result yet, I already feel the horror of this trick. The crew were all excited, and when Marco dived down, a strong air pressure was also suppressed. Advertisement. Some crew members around even felt a lot of shortness of breath, but Whitebeard too was still not afraid. He stood on the spot, raised his broadsword in both hands and raised it above his head. The cyan flames in Marco's whole body circulated greatly, because the effects of force were mutual. Rushing down at such a high distance, Marco himself will also suffer some shocks. Therefore, in order to avoid his own injury, Marco opened up his recovery power in advance. In the Phoenix state, the cyan flame can automatically restore and heal Marco. Flew into the air. 5.0. But this degree is also limited, and if you take the initiative to recover in advance, you can also reduce the damage. Soon, Marco, who was rushing down, was like a blue flame bird, because it was too fast and sharp like a knife. Directly impacting on the blade of Whitebeard too, a huge air current swept all around. The strong air current blew the flags on the Whitebeard ship crazily, so the crew could not face the shock wave directly. In the face of the huge air currents, they could not even open their eyes, and could only crawl on the ground or hide in the cabin. At that moment, Whitebeard too felt as if he had suffered thousands of kilograms of force on his body. His feet sank suddenly because of the heavy weight, and he was going to step on the deck. Chapter 205. Red hair, long time no see. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. But suddenly, Whitebeard too felt a barrier under his feet. This barrier sent out a shocking force, directly offsetting its own heavy power, and the deck did not suffer any damage. At the same time, around the impact of Whitebeard too and Marco, a spherical shock barrier was added, which completely absorbed the amount of frenzied violence they had erupted. Therefore, after a brief period of wind pressure swept through, no other force leaked out, and the entire ship was restored to its original state. It's interesting, ha ha ha, I have to do my best. In the face of Marco's tremendous impact, Whitebeard too also felt a lot of pressure. His body was even a little bent, and the arm holding the big knife was even more exposed to the most explosive impact. However, Whitebeard too was not defeated by Marco, but showed a sense of excitement. After speaking, Whitebeard's body suddenly burst out with a huge force, and a storm-like air pressure swept away. However, this air pressure was completely blocked by Whitebeard's shock barrier, and it did not rebound at all. 01 Marco also felt the resistance of Whitebeard too, and his body began to be gradually shocked. In order to avoid injury and loss of recovery ability, Marco retreated in time, and then flew into the air again. I didn't expect Jing to reach this strength. Even though Marco knew the power of Whitebeard too, he was still a little surprised at this time. This is almost his strongest attack power, but it still cannot cause him damage. Advertisement. And if he didn't retreat in time, he would even be directly injured by the counterattack. Ha ha ha, look at me. Just as Marco slackened, Whitebeard too laughed and jumped straight up. Because Marco was in the air, Whitebeard too could reach this height, and saw his heavy sword slash towards Marco. Marco's body formed by the combination of cyan flames was immediately cut open. At this time Marco reacted and immediately flew to a higher altitude. Fortunately, Marco's wound was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye, but it was still a harm to him. Whitebeard's eyes flickered and immediately stopped their confrontation. Marco went back to the deck unwillingly, lowered his head and said to Whitebeard, "Daddy, I." Whitebeard waved his hand and said, "Letting you to fight is to make greater progress and also to let you understand your own strengths and weaknesses. Father, I think my biggest problem is that my attack power is not strong enough, and my hockey ability is not enough." Marco also answered calmly. After studying his own Eudemon's fruit for many years, Marco himself is certainly aware of the characteristics of his abilities. It's just that this is the maximum extent that he can play. The characteristics of the fruit are placed here, and it will definitely be limited. You are right, but in addition to strengthening hockey training, you can also tap your fruit ability. Whitebeard said as if he could see through everything. Hearing that, Marco also showed a hint of excitement. What? His fruit ability can still be tapped. It has been 30 years since Marco obtained the fruit of the Eudemons, and it can be said that he has completely understood it. But now Whitebeard actually said that it can continue to dig, and this Eudemon fruit can still be developed. Of course, Marco completely believes in Whitebeard, so how can he not be excited? Advertisement. Father, then what should I do? Marco asked immediately. First you need to train yourself to gather the flames of the phoenix, Whitebeard said. Marco immediately got serious, and then immediately gathered his flames on his fists as requested by Whitebeard. Although any part of Marco's body can be turned into a blue flame, he is not only turning his fist into a flame at this time. Instead, the cyan flames of the whole body were compressed and then gathered on the fists. But Marco can't maintain this state for too long, because of the effect of the Eudemon fruit. His body will automatically turn into a cyan flame, and the power of the flame above his fist will be restored to its original power. Daddy, is this a horse? Marco asked immediately. Well, in the first step, you should use this state proficiently. As long as you can maintain the time for 3 seconds, you must also be able to retract and release freely. Whitebeard immediately arranged for Marco the requirements of the first phase of his training, and Marco nodded heavily. I understand, Daddy, I will meet the requirements as quickly as possible. Marco was full of confidence and showed a strong desire to become stronger. Because Marco also understands his father's expectations of him, he is willing to spend so much time to guide himself. Well, after you finish the first stage, I will guide you on what to do in the next stage. Whitebeard nodded happily. At this time, Whitebeard too mocked and said, Hey, no matter what you do, it's not my opponent. That's not necessarily the case, let's see when the time comes. Marco clenched his fist at him. Father, a pirate group was found ahead. At this moment, a crew member suddenly reported. Advertisement. Are you sure? Whitebeard asked casually. Yes, it's Red Hair Pirates. The observer answered immediately after seeing the flag on the distant ship. Gum ha ha ha. Whitebeard burst out laughing 917 when he heard the words. I knew he would come. Whitebeard was not surprised by this, as if he had known the red hair was coming. This is not surprising, because red hair used to be a nosy person. For example, at that time, the red hair also came to him, just to let him persuade Ace not to pursue Blackbeard. And now, with so many major incidents recently, it is impossible for a redhead to sit still. Guhahaha. Guys, since there are guests here, let's greet them warmly. Whitebeard stood up and said to the crew with a smile. The crew of Whitebeard immediately formed a line to welcome Red Hair Pirates. Ha ha ha, it really is him. In the distance, the redhead saw Whitebeard's tall figure at first glance, and he felt a shock in his heart. In an instant, the red-haired mind also recalled many scenes, but seeing the current Whitebeard, the red-haired had a strange feeling. When the redhead saw Whitebeard before, he felt that Whitebeard was already an old man in his twilight years. But now the spirited Whitebeard on the bow doesn't have the feeling of dying, on the contrary, it is in full swing. Red hair, long time no see. Whitebeard's characteristic laugh came from a distance. Chapter 206. Red hair eager to try. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. The red-haired boat approached quickly, and the red-haired stared at Whitebeard for a long time before speaking. Whitebeard, it's been a long time since I saw you. I didn't expect you to be alive. It's incredible. Before Whitebeard's funeral was done with the help of red hair, but now Whitebeard is standing in front of him. So the red hair at this time is also a little surprised. Whitebeard laughed. Yeah, I find it incredible, let alone you guys. Afterwards, Hongfa sat and chatted with Whitebeard. Whitebeard, can you tell me, how did you survive? The red hair asked curiously. Whitebeard shook his head. Although each of you cares about this question, I really can't give you an answer. Okay. The red hair didn't continue to ask. A lot of things have happened recently. I didn't expect you in your twilight years to get the title of One Piece. The red hair was quite emotional. The reason for this is that the Marine government also has their own purpose, but my name as One Piece is not upright enough. Whitebeard replied. Hearing this, the red hair was also keenly aware of Whitebeard's attitude. So, do you have your own plan in the future? Are you going to defeat the other 4 emperors? Redhead asked directly. Whitebeard didn't intend to circle in front of the red hair, and immediately said, You are right, I do think so. Advertisement. The era of the great pirate started by Roger, because of his sentence during execution, set off a storm of sailing. But the entanglement of the numerous forces on the sea is a bit complicated. There are killings and battles everywhere. I think there is a need for one person to unite. Whitebeard told the truth about his thoughts in front of the red hair. After listening, although the red hair felt shocked, it was within his expectation. The Whitebeard in front of me is really different from before. Redhead thought in her heart. Compared with the previous Whitebeard, this time Whitebeard is full of vigor and ambition. Haha, that said, are you planning to solve me and me together? Hongfa joked. My purpose is to unify the sea, not to cause more killings, should you cooperate with me. Whitebeard smiled and looked at the red hair. The red hair was silent for a while before answering, and then said for a long time, This is, with your current strength, I shouldn't have any chance to resist. It seems you have heard of some of my battles, too. Whitebeard laughed. Now I am afraid that the entire new world is filled with all kinds of information about you. It is difficult for people to not know. I heard that you also defeated Hawkeye, and now the world's #1 swordsman is also your title. The redhead also started to tease Whitebeard. Whitebeard sighed and said, I didn't intend to take his name, it's because he can't get along with himself. Your reappearance has already broken the new world situation. I heard that the Ant Pirates have taken action recently, and the Blackbeard Pirates have also sent people to contact the Kaido Pirates. The red hair said solemnly, trying to remind Whitebeard so that he would be wary. Does that guy Blackbeard want to unite with Kaido? Does he think this can deal with me? When Whitebeard spoke, he showed a cold tone. Advertisement. The guy Blackbeard is scheming and has a very tricky ability like Dark Fruit. If you join with Kaido, you have to be careful. Redhead is also concerned about Whitebeard, but he has not really touched Whitebeard's strength. Guck ha ha ha. Red hair, you worry about me instead of worrying about yourself, maybe they will find you to unite. Whitebeard suddenly laughed. Look for me. Blackbeard shouldn't do such stupid things, right? Redhead didn't believe it at all. After all, his friendship with Whitebeard hasn't been a day or two, New World knows this. So the redhead felt that Blackbeard would not woo him to deal with Whitebeard. Whitebeard didn't explain. After all, when people are afraid, they can do everything. In the following time, the redhead chatted with Whitebeard happily. It's basically about some things in the past. Redhead has also talked to Whitebeard many times before. In the past, Whitebeard preferred to miss the past, but now Whitebeard prefers to look forward to the future. This is the biggest change that redheads think Whitebeard has undergone, and of course this change is also reflected in strength. Whitebeard, it's all here, how about you fight with me? When the sky gradually darkened, the red hair said, a continuous red glow was reflected in the sky. Okay, I know you must have this purpose this time. Whitebeard was not surprised at all, but agreed with one bite. So they fought directly on the sea. Whitebeard used the power of the earthquake to create a huge ground on the sea. Whitebeard and the red hair stomped on flat ground. Unexpectedly, shock fruit can achieve this level. Red hair was secretly startled. This is the first time I have seen Whitebeard do this. Advertisement. At this time, Whitebeard and the red-haired pirates were watching their confrontation. Father, come on. We believe in you. The crew on Whitebeard's side was obviously more confident, and their cheers were even higher. Although the red hair side also supports him, they also think that red hair is not Whitebeard's opponent. After all, Redhead doesn't think he can beat Whitebeard, just wants to fight him. You only have one arm. In that case, I will only use one arm. Whitebeard put his left hand behind him. You don't take advantage at all. The red hare joked, and his expression became serious. The red hare drew out his long sword with his right hand, facing Whitebeard, who was holding a big sword, and suddenly released his conqueror's haki. Suddenly, a strong pressure swept across the sea. Although the crew of the two pirate regiments were separated some distance, they still felt a sense of oppression of the king. Is this the oppressive force of the four emperors? It is really strong. Marco sighed. But Marco is not comparing red hair with Whitebeard, but comparing himself with red hair. You know, red hair doesn't have any fruiting ability, but he relies entirely on his own strength, especially his conqueror's haki, which is exceptionally amazing. However, in the face of the coercion of the red hair, Whitebeard did not respond at all, because this level was nothing to come. In order to use his haki many times and complete the effect of the card as soon as possible, Whitebeard also immediately launched his own conqueror's haki. The huge coercion spread from Whitebeard's body, spreading like a violent gust of wind, and the surrounding space even shook. Guy. Chapter 207. Crushing Red Hair. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. The red-haired windbreaker was swayed violently by the air pressure from Whitebeard, and his heart was full of vibrations. I didn't expect his conqueror's haki to reach this level. It's amazing. In the competition of conqueror's haki, the red hair fell short, and his aura was completely suppressed by one Whitebeard. Even conqueror's haki, with red hair facing Whitebeard, felt a panic, as if his breathing was oppressed. Although they did not cause harm to the red hair, from the perspective of conqueror's haki, their strengths are already very different. But the red hair is obviously not winning or losing with Whitebeard. After a brief surprise, he rushed to Whitebeard decisively. I saw the red-haired figure quickly rushed over, raised his sword and swung it up. Red-haired was also a master of swordsmanship, and at this time, with his conqueror's haki, his strength was stronger than Hawkeye. Stirrup. Redhead slashed the long sword as if it were a knife, but Whitebeard blocked it with a big knife. At this time, the arms of both sides were covered with armament haki, and the black and shiny haki appeared very powerful. Red hair, I didn't expect you to be so strong after a broken arm. Whitebeard said to the red hair. Shanks replied with some difficulty. It's still far behind you. The two swords are facing each other, and the strength of the two sides is constantly colliding. In the eyes of the people of the two pirate groups, although Whitebeard and Shanks are just opposite each other, there is no other action of 917. But around them, the barrier ground that Whitebeard had built before was distorted by their collision force. Shanks then took the initiative to retreat, dissolving his strength, and began to gasp. Advertisement. After only one round with Whitebeard, Shanks already felt a little tired. But this is also normal. After all, this one has released too much power. If it is an ordinary pirate, these powers of Shanks can defeat several pirate groups. Shanks looked at Whitebeard, and saw that Whitebeard still had a relaxed face. I thought I could at least get some of his whole cards, so I'm still too naive. Shanks said regretfully in his heart. According to the current situation, Shanks doesn't think he can make Whitebeard show half of his strength. However, the battle continued, and Shanks continued to attack. This time Shanks' attack speed was much faster, and Whitebeard fought back and forth. Every weapon collision between the two sides will cause a shock in space. Although at this time the feet of both of them are stepping on the barrier, separating the seawater. But their power will still leak out, and the surrounding sea has begun to constantly agitate. The sword light flashed on the sea, and haki was horizontally. Seeing the powerful battle, the crew members were all amazed. But for the crew of Whitebeard, they have seen the strength of the old man several times. Although I am still amazed, I am not so surprised anymore. On the other hand, Shanks' crew members were shocked to the extreme by Whitebeard's strength. How is it possible that the captain is not an opponent at all? Yeah, it's totally at a disadvantage, and it can be seen that Whitebeard hasn't used all his strength yet. Advertisement. It's horrible, what happened after Whitebeard was resurrected. The crew of Shanks were shocked one by one, even though it was only a two-person battle. But Whitebeard gave them no less shock than the scene of the war. Well, Whitebeard, it seems that this sea in the future belongs to him. Ben Beckman looked at Whitebeard and couldn't help but fall into thought. When Marco was also watching seriously, a sound suddenly came from his ear. Marco, look good, how to use the fruit power, this will be of great help to your study. It turned out to be Whitebeard's voice. ABFA, Whitebeard used his shock power to transmit his voice, and it was only heard by Marco. Marco was moved in his heart, and he didn't expect Whitebeard, who was fighting at this time, would still think about how he cultivated him. Father, I won't let you down. Marco made up his mind. I saw that Whitebeard suddenly concentrated the power of the shock on his broadsword, and then struck Shanks heavily. This blow carried violent pressure, as if breaking the ground. Shanks even felt the threat of death from it. This blow not only contained the powerful shock of Whitebeard, but also covered the dark hockey. The violent power had not completely hit the space before it had produced a strong split wave. There was a harsh roar in the air, and the sea water began to violently turbulent. Some changes have also taken place in the sky, seeming to echo this powerful force. A dark cloud shrouded the sea, and the music within the dark cloud saw the thunder rolling. Shanks also took a deep breath, transporting the whole body of hockey onto the long sword. Advertisement. At the same time, as a master of swordsmanship, Shanks concentrates the most powerful sword energy on the tip of the long sword. I wanted to use a Rankar to fight Whitebeard, and the moment the two sides fought, the surface of the sea had become horrified. A ray of thunder shot down from the sky, and a violent force burst out at the point where the two sides contacted. The strong wind pressure even made those pirate groups who were watching the battle back down a lot. Their ship couldn't even control it, and under the strong wind pressure, it changed its course abruptly and moved a lot. Horrible. Terrible. After the ship moved away, Ben Beckman couldn't help sighing inwardly. This terrible power surpasses any previous battle between Shanks and Whitebeard. Under that force, the sword aura was already uncontrollable because of the extreme collision between the two sides, soaring into the sky, drawing a huge trace on the dark clouds in the sky. A dark cloud was even scattered into two pieces because of this sword aura, and the sword aura remained in the sky for a long time. This kind of scene makes people look like a crack in the sky, which is very thrilling. And the sea barrier created by Whitebeard in advance was instantly destroyed, and Shanks fell to the sea because he lost his pedal. As Whitebeard regained his strength in time, Shanks was not injured, but his body suffered a lot of impact. Although it is not a serious injury, Shanks needs a period of rest to recover after this battle. Whitebeard was standing on a volley at a height of 1 meter from the sea. Because of the ability of the card, he could fly in the volley. How about, Shanks, are you having a good time? Whitebeard said to Shanks with his arms around him and a smile. Shanks only had his head and shoulders above the water. Although he failed, his face still showed joy. Chapter 208. Redhead's exclamation. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Whitebeard, is this your current strength? I seem to see Captain Roger. Shanks said with a dazed look. Captain Roger. His final ending is really a shame, but I won't repeat it. I want to conquer this entire sea. Speaking of Roger, Whitebeard first showed a respectful look, and then showed his kingly self-confidence. Soon, both Whitebeard and Shanks returned to the ship, and the crew of Whitebeard were all cheering. Daddy is amazing. It's great, old man. I can't wait to see Dad defeat the other 4 emperors, this is wonderful. During this period of time, they watched the old man defeat the powerful enemy time and time again, and their hearts were full of enthusiasm. Gee ha ha ha. Sons, if you want to fight 4 emperors level opponents, you also need to work hard, don't hold me back when the time comes. Whitebeard looked at his crew and laughed. Speaking of, Whitebeard, Shanks, if you get the power of fruit, you can be stronger. Whitebeard said to Shanks suddenly. After all, it is not a shame to get the power of fruit, even he himself needs to rely on the power of shock fruit. The same is true for Marine 3 Admiral. And now Shanks can reach the height of 4 emperors only by relying on Conqueror's hockey and its own hard power. If the power of the fruit is obtained again, as long as it is developed, then his strength will definitely rise to a higher level, there is no doubt about it. Advertisement. However, Shanks shook his head. I love this sea. If I can get fruit, it means I can't touch the sea. Like just now, if you have the fruit ability, once you are transferred into the sea, you will lose your power and have no ability to move. Of course, Shanks has other reasons for not wanting to get fruit power. Otherwise, with his ability, wouldn't it be possible to get a powerful devil fruit for so many years? Well, let's take a break first. Whitebeard nodded. Everyone with their own ambitions, no longer said anything. By the way, Shanks, how long do you plan to stay here this time? Whitebeard asked casually. Although red hair has always been free, there is no fixed power. But this matter still has some impact. It's hard to see you again, so stay a few more days. Shanks smiled. Well, if that's the case, then I just want to ask you one thing. Whitebeard said maliciously. Will you still ask others? I really can't see it. Let's go. What's the matter? Shanks said slightly unexpectedly. Recently, I need to make some preparations to improve the strength of my pirate group. I want you to guide one of my captains. Whitebeard said straightforwardly. As Whitebeard's confidant, Marco is naturally taught by himself, but there are other captains that need to be trained. Although Whitebeard can guide himself and is fully capable, it is better to let Shanks guide him. Because Shanks' style is similar to him, at least his style is far from Whitebeard's. Oh, who is it? Shanks asked immediately. Advertisement. My 5th captain, Foil Vista. Hearing this, Shanks nodded. He also guessed the answer. After all, they all use swords, and they are among the best in Whitebeard's captain. His current strength is not bad, he was said to be evenly matched with Eagle Eye when he was in the war. Shanks thought for a while and said. Whitebeard immediately shook his head, it's just a match for it, but if it really fights, it won't be Hawkeye's opponent. My big knife Kongyun cut is suitable for opening and closing, not suitable for Vista's style, so if you can help, then I would like to thank you. This reason is also very legitimate. Shanks is not easy to refuse, but he thought that since it was Whitebeard who spoke, he had to get a favor. So he agreed, but now on Whitebeard's boat, except for Marco, the other captains have been sent out. Although Whitebeard has recalled all the captains, it will take time to gather. Well, I can promise you, but you also need to promise me a condition. Shanks is about to use this favor in exchange for equal value. Oh, interesting, tell me. Seeing Shanks agreed so quickly, and at the same time that he also had the conditions, Whitebeard couldn't help being a little curious. 0 seeking flowers, 0. I want you to support Luffy more in the future. Shanks said slowly. This made Whitebeard a little surprised. He thought Shanks would offer him favorable terms. Unexpectedly, this is the case. Whitebeard said immediately. I didn't expect you to take care of this Luffy in this way, but there seems to be no news about him recently. He should be working hard now. After the top war, he must be crazy to improve his strength. Without strength, he can't do anything. Shanks sighed slightly after speaking. Whitebeard also liked Luffy quite a bit. After all, he was also a person of love and righteousness. Advertisement. Okay, I promise you, as long as I can, I will give them some help. Whitebeard readily agreed. Okay, it's settled. Afterwards, when Whitebeard remembered this, he felt as if he was being tricked by Shanks. Shanks only teaches a captain, while Whitebeard wants to help a pirate group. The workload of the two seems to be unequal, although Whitebeard really wants to shout, Shanks, you scam, but how can he go back on what he has accepted? After that, Shanks stayed at Whitebeard. In 2 days, all the captains of Whitebeard also returned. These captains stabilized all of Whitebeard's territories, and arranged special personnel to be stationed in each place. Once anything happens, they will immediately report to Whitebeard. And this situation was quickly known to Marine. After all, this relatively large size attracted Marine's attention. Although Shanks has only 1 ship everywhere, the main group of Whitebeard has 4 ships, and they are all relatively large. With so many pirates gathered together, it is hard not to attract Marine's attention. And it's not a general note, if it's just quantity, it's actually nothing. But the key point is that this is the gathering of 2 4 Emperors-level pirate groups. At Marine headquarters, Akainu was shocked by the news. What are you talking about? Shanks took the initiative to find Whitebeard, and they gathered together. Yes, and it seems that there has been a battle, and now the 2 pirate groups are still together. And Chapter 209. Naval Headquarters Shock. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Akainu was very surprised when he heard about the encounter between Whitebeard and Red Hair pirates. There was also a Marine meeting immediately afterwards. At the meeting, Akainu proposed to wipe out Whitebeard and Red Hair pirates. The 2 pirate groups must not be allowed to unite, otherwise it will pose a greater threat. Akainu said. However, Garp asked, then what do you plan to do? Just one Whitebeard is already a headache, not to mention that there are still 2 4 Emperors pirate groups. Kizaru also nodded. Yes, I am the only admiral now, and I can't hold the scene at all. Because Akainu and Aokiji have experienced a battle, at this time Akainu is already Marine General Marshal. Although he has not been in office for a long time, his identity has been placed here. And Aokiji left Marine after failing to compete with Akainu for the Marshal, not knowing where he went. Therefore, Kizaru is the only one in the Marine government at the moment. Preparations for the world conscription have already begun, and there should be a new admiral candidate soon. Sengoku from the Buddhist department said at this time. Although it is a world conscription, Sengoku does not feel that the new admiral recruited can be compared with the old admiral before. The 3 old admiral, Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru, can be called the top combat power of the Marine government, and Sengoku finds it difficult to get such a lineup anymore. Even if you are the only admiral, organize their union. Once the 4 Emperors pirate group unites, the threat to Marine will double. Akainu insisted. Because of his status as Marshal Marine, although the others are old, they cannot easily refute his words. Advertisement. What's more, Akainu's idea is extremely correct for the Marine government. Regardless of whether Whitebeard and Red Hair pirates have a joint plan, their threats are objective. And I have already asked 5 elders, and they are also in favor of preventing the Red Hair from joining Whitebeard. Akainu finally moved out of 5 elders, which left no room for objection. So the final result of the meeting was in favor of the use of Whitebeard and Red Hair pirates. This time, led by Garp and Kizaru, assisted by Momosuke, plus 5 headquarter vice admiral, with 10 marine warships, a total of nearly 3,000 people went to attack Whitebeard and Red Hair pirates. Although this lineup is pretty good, facing 2-4 Emperors-level pirate groups, especially among them there is such a horrible existence as Whitebeard. Their odds of winning are pretty slim, but their plan is not to go shopping with Whitebeard and the Redheads. It was just to prevent their union and to warn them appropriately. Therefore, when making plans on the warship, Garp proposed to let Kizaru and Momosuge deal with Whitebeard and deal with the Red Hair himself. Because with Kizaru's ability, Whitebeard can be restrained for a period of time. As long as Whitebeard has no time for him to take care of, then his pirate group will be appropriately hit. You must be careful at that time, the power of that Whitebeard now is very terrifying. Especially you, Momosuge, don't be impulsive, don't have the idea that you really want to fight Whitebeard, all you have to do is contain him and protect yourself. On the warship, Garp repeatedly reminded Teoman, after all, there are already few female high-level officials in the marine government, not to mention the rare combat power of Momosuge. You know, although Momosuge's identity is only Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, but it is Marine's highest combat power Admiral candidate. Advertisement. And, one thing worth saying, Momosuge also has a very good relationship with Vice Admiral, Marine's Chief Staff Officer, just like sisters. Before he left, Vice Admiral asked Garp to take care of Momosuge, so Garp was also cautious. I know, but since this Whitebeard is so powerful, why doesn't Garp Vice Admiral personally check it? Isn't it more certain? Momosuge couldn't help but have a question, because according to normal thinking, the top combat power is of course against the top combat power. But there is still a redhead to deal with, maybe that guy is better to deal with, Garp said. Okay. Momosuge nodded. Although she had her own thoughts in her heart, she couldn't oppose Garp's strategy. That Whitebeard is a bit scary, if it's not necessary, I really don't want to fight him. Kizaru sighed helplessly. Ha ha ha, ask for your blessings. If you were fighting for Martial Marine, maybe it is you now and order someone else. Garp said with a smile, as if casually. But the speaker was unintentional, and the listener was interested. Kizaru immediately shook his head and said, hey, how can I beat Akainu? That guy, even Aokiji is not an opponent. Come on, if you haven't changed in the first place, just get serious, I believe you are the leader of the three admiral. Garp seems to understand this very well. Kizaru didn't answer this question, Garp glanced at him, and didn't continue to struggle with this question. Hey, I don't know why the red hair is looking for Whitebeard. Since Whitebeard reappeared, the whole world has become tense inexplicably. Garp sighed to himself. Is that Whitebeard really as good as what you said? Momosuge was also a little curious, although I had heard a lot about Whitebeard. Advertisement. The whole world is talking about how powerful Whitebeard is, but Momosuge thinks that as long as two admiral-level marines work together, they should be able to deal with Whitebeard. But looking at the meaning of Garp and Kizaru, they didn't think of Leon to deal with Whitebeard, but the initial purpose was to contain him. This shakes Momosuge's cognition. After all, Garp has destroyed Rock's pirate and forced Roger into desperate marine legend several times. Even if Whitebeard has played Garp, he won't be too powerful. This is equivalent to Marine's highest combat power. But when he was about to face the existence of this kind of opinion called One Piece, Daomeng was agitated in his heart. But then she shook her head, and discarded all her random thoughts. As a Marine 5.0, she only needs to implement her beliefs. No matter how strong Whitebeard is, she must go all out and stay sensible. On the other hand, Whitebeard and Red Hair pirates did not know that Marine had dispatched many Marines for their gathering. They are still gathering together, and all the current captains of Whitebeard have reached here, except for Joe's. Marco replaced Whitebeard and reorganized the organization of all captains. There are currently 18 teams. That is, the 18 captains, except for Joe's, there are 17 captains present. This number is a lot, but there seem to be few captains who can really hold the job. Marco, Joe's, Bista, plus the previous Alorge, are only 4 Whitebeards more important. Chapter 210. Marine Admiral is here. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Whitebeard improved the strength of all his captains, and Marco, Joe's, Bista, and Arogo were the focus. Each of them is pretty good, and there is a lot of room for improvement. There are 3 Admiral in Marine, and my Whitebeard pirate group will train my 4 Admiral in the future. This is one of Whitebeard's goals. After all, if you want to dominate the sea in the future, you need not only your own strength, but also the cards you can get. Fortunately, Marco is also very upright, practicing hard all day long. The red hair is also very attentive to guide Bista. Bista's strength is already good, but he lacks some kingly aura in the realm. Therefore, as a swordsman, the red hair trains his haki first. Only when haki becomes stronger can swordsmanship become stronger. Father, they are all training, so what am I doing? Seeing Marco and they all have their own business, Whitebeard too is a bit boring again. During this period of time, he has been by Whitebeard's side, and there is basically no chance of fighting, which makes Whitebeard's heart very restless. Not being able to fight with people is really a painful thing for him, and it makes him very unhappy. If there is an enemy now, then Whitebeard too may not hesitate to raise the knife and rush towards the opponent. Wabel, go eat if you're bored, Whitebeard said to him. Although Whitebeard too also likes to eat, he still prefers to fight in comparison. Fighting people is a very passionate thing, but Whitebeard has always restricted him so much that he has nowhere to vent. Seeing him like this, Whitebeard was also a little helpless. This guy's desire to fight was too strong. Advertisement. Well, Wabel, play with me. It just so happens that Whitebeard is fine now, he can only personally be Whitebeard II's sparring partner. Ah, Daddy, you. Whitebeard too took 2 steps back in surprise. What Whitebeard too wanted to do was to beat others, and if he fights with Whitebeard, wouldn't he be beaten? Father, I will never be your opponent, I will not fight you. Whitebeard too immediately refused. Gum ha ha ha, forget it, but after a while, I can let you fight Marco. Whitebeard said with a smile. Whitebeard predicts that with Marco's current practice speed, it will only take a few months to reach the fighting capacity of Whitebeard 2. If you add IQ crushing, Whitebeard 2 is probably not Marco's opponent. Okay, then I'll wait, the sooner the better. Whitebeard 2 immediately showed great desire to fight. However, he didn't know this time for several months, and at this time, marine warships such as Garp and Kizaru gradually appeared in the distance. Garp Vice Admiral, I saw them. The observer on the warship reported. Then Garp also looked through the binoculars, and he saw that Whitebeard and Redhead were in the same boat. Don't attack in a hurry. Just 5 warships in the front will attack, and the other 3 will go around in 3 directions behind them. After Garp, the general ship stopped, and then ordered the 3 warships to start circling back. Only in this way, may be able to cause unexpected attacks on them. After the 3 warships successfully bypassed, Garp sent the order to advance. Soon, the appearance of Marine attracted the attention of 2 pirate groups. Father, there is Marine again. There are 5 Marine warships. Garp, Kizaru and others have been found. Advertisement. As his subordinates accurately reported, Whitebeard laughed immediately. Gee ha ha ha, this time send 2 strong men to deal with me at the same time, but they are a bit naive. At this time, the red hair said, first think the Marine government should have sent warships to interfere because our 2 pirate regiments gathered here. Whitebeard thinks what Shanks said makes sense. After the last battle, Marine shouldn't think that he could defeat Whitebeard so easily. You are right. If that's the case, let's play with them. This time, Marine's warship did not approach, but stopped after reaching the distance that the shell could hit. Then began the cannonball attack, without the slightest word. The 5 warships' artillery shells were fired at once, and huge black artillery shells came across in the air. Whitebeard raised his hand, a shocking force formed a sound wave and spread out, smashing the shells in the air. It seems that they don't plan to keep their hands. Whitebeard said gloomily. The red hair joked. They are afraid of you, your current strength, do they want them to make you fail? After speaking, Hongfa returned to his ship and began to command operations. Go ahead, drive past, and attack. Whitebeard immediately ordered the 4 ships to rush forward with all their strength, so that the crew could launch a counterattack. During this period, Whitebeard used a shock to disintegrate all the shells. However, at this time, the 3 warships that were behind also took the opportunity to attack. The front and back shells were continuously fired, and one after another soaring water jets appeared on the sea. Advertisement. Father, there is a sneak attack behind them. Marco said solemnly. HMPH, it's time to show your strength, don't let Marine look down on us, and you don't take me as a support. After speaking, Whitebeard took the initiative to revoke his shock power. Now his captain is all there, and if he has to intervene in this level of battle, then his crew will not be 917. Everyone will probably fall into a kind of ease, which of course Whitebeard doesn't want to see. Whitebeard flew directly into the air, and a shocking force was released towards the Marine warship, like a beam of light. Garp stood at the forefront and knocked out the beam of light with a punch. At this time, Kizaru took the initiative to jump into the air. Your opponent is me, Kizaru said to Whitebeard. Why is it you again? Isn't the memory of the last time not deep enough? Whitebeard said to Kizaru indifferently. And Kizaru's face was also a little embarrassed. After all, his last defeat was indeed a bit miserable. As an admiral, Marine government card face, it can't last long in front of Whitebeard. This is really shameful, but thinking that Garp also lost to Whitebeard, he is nothing to be ashamed of. Yes, as Marine Admiral, you still have to obey the command, but you shouldn't be too cruel. Kizaru said with a smile. In this case, you can do your best. Whitebeard stepped heavily in the air, and a conqueror's hockey spread out immediately. It spreads around like an invisible ripple. Fortunately, they are in the sky now, otherwise it is just this conqueror's hockey. I am afraid that those Marines will be stunned because of this. Even Kizaru will feel a little bit of oppression in the face of such a terrifying haki.